This hearing to order. Will um, direct the committee secretary to acknowledge the resource persons for today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. For the budget briefing on the proposed expenditure programs of the National Power Corporation, Philippine National Oil Company or PNOC, PNOC Exploration Corporation, PNOC Renewables Corporation, and the Power Sector Assets and Liabilities Management Corporation or PISAM, we would like to acknowledge our resource persons. From NPC, we have the President and CEO, Mr. Fernando Martin Rojas, together with Vice President Attorney Rohel Teves, Vice President Engineer Rene Baruela, Vice President Mr. Crisanto V. Hilario, OIC Vice President Attorney Charity Jaima, OIC Vice President Attorney Manuel Luis Plafino, Manager Ms. Maria Annabel Versosa, and Manager Mr. RJB Manibo. From the Philippine National Oil Company or PNOC, we have the President and CEO, President Oliver R. Botalid, together with Senior Vice President Attorney Josephine Cassandra Cui, Department Manager Ms. Maria Rowena Raimundo, Department Manager Ms. Alma B. Taganas, and Head Executive Assistant Ms. Maria Francesca Garcia. From PNOCEC, we have the President, OIC President and CEO Mr. Jaime A. Bacod, together with Vice President Candido Magsambol, Manager Miguel A. Tordilla, Manager Federico Galang, and Manager Mr. Alexis Man de la Torre. From PNOC Renewables Corporation or PNOC-RC, we have the Budget Manager, Mr. Arnel Corona. From the Power Sector Assets and Liabilities Management Corporation or PISAM, we have the President and CEO, Mr. Dennis Edward A. de la Serna, together with Ms. Twinkle Bautista, Ms. Lloyda Uy, and Ms. Ruela T. Foliada. We have also requested the presence of the following agencies. From the DOE, we have Attorney Myra Fiera Roa and Attorney Rowena Joyce de los Santos. From ERC, we have Ms. Jenna C. Marinas. From NEA, we have Deputy Administrator Attorney Rosan S. J. Rosero Lee, together with Ms. Ruth Ramirez and Ms. Rosie M. Alamilio. We have also invited a representative from Transco, but we are still waiting their attendance. From the DBM, we have Mr. Mark James Evangelista, and from the Commission on Audit or COA, we have the Supervising Auditor, Ms. Cynthia Herrera, together with Mr. Alexander L. Espina, Auditing Leader for NPC, Mr. Jonathan Javier, OIC Supervising Auditor for PNOC, Mr. Pablo Gonzalo D. Mendoza, Auditing Leader for PISAM, Mr. Virgel Bautista, Auditing Leader for Transco, Mr. Halil Bagul, also Auditing Leader for PNOC, Ms. Nanette Rose Garcia, also an Auditing Leader for PNOC, and Mr. Melvin Fabilian. That's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Committee Secretary. Again, thank you very much for coming to the budget hearing for PNOC and all its subsidiaries, National Power Corporation, and PSAM, Philippine Power Sector Assets and Liabilities Management Corporation. So for an orderly discussion, we'll proceed with the presentations first. So we'll request the different agencies to do their presentations, and then after that, we'll open the floor for Q&A. So we'll start off with PNOC and all of its subsidiaries, and then later on, we'll go to National Power Corporation and then to PSAM. All right. So we'll call on PNOC for their presentation.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Today, I intend to provide a concise view. Do we have slides? A concise overview of the three key objectives PNOC aims to vigorously pursue in 2025 to support our budget request. Next slide. I show this slide to provide context. Last year, the PNOC board made a pivotal decision to transition from an asset management company to a strategic niche player in the energy industry. This year, our focus has been on capability building, digital transformation, and establishing strategic partnerships with technology providers, potential investors, and government agencies involved in energy projects. Next year, we are ready to fully implement initiatives that closely align with the 2024 Philippine Energy Plan. Next slide, please. PNOC has consistently been a top contributor among GOCCs to the national government through taxes and dividends. Last year, we remitted 1.58 billion in taxes and 4.22 billion in dividends. Since 2010, our total taxes paid amount to 66.2 billion and total dividend contributions since 2010 was 25.5 billion. Our first strategic goal for next year is to establish a joint development agreement with the most suitable developer operator for the repurposing of our ESB port in Mabini, Batangas, the first OSW port that will operate in the Philippines. We are actively promoting this project and have received a number of inquiries from interested developers. The frontrunner wind developers aim to launch wind turbines from this site as early as 2028. According to the Philippine Energy Plan, the commitment is to achieve 35% of the total generation mix from renewable energy by 2030, with a specific target of 1,750 megawatts generated from wind. Our second objective is to enhance energy efficiency by installing rooftop photovoltaic systems in key government buildings. PNOC is uniquely positioned to support the goals of RA 11285, the Energy Efficiency Act, and the Interagency Energy Efficiency and Conservation Committee resolution, which advocates for solar PV installations in government buildings. To date, we have signed contracts with 5 agencies for a total of 5.5 megawatts. We anticipate signing additional contracts with 3 other government agencies before the end of the month, which will bring the total to over 6 megawatts, and we aim to ramp up to at least 20 megawatts next year. Our third objective for 2025 focuses on supporting NPC's mandate. Currently, electricity customers pay 18.05 centavos per kilowatt hour in UCME to subsidize diesel-generated electricity in off-grid areas. PNOC plans to launch initiatives that reduce this dependency through renewable energy solutions, including solar installations, hybrid wind solar technology, micro-hydro systems, and modular LNG generators. We have secured technology agreements with reputable international firms that have successfully implemented these systems in many developing nations. Our goal is to complete field testing early next year to determine the most suitable energy solution for each target area. Mr. Chair, PNOC seeks an approval for a corporate operating budget of 3.25 billion, fully sourced from our internal funds. A significant portion of this budget will be dedicated to projects supporting the 3 strategic objectives discussed earlier. We believe these initiatives will greatly contribute to the nation's energy transition goals of energy security, affordability of electricity prices, and environmental sustainability while ensuring PNOC's long-term financial stability. Lastly, PNOC seeks the favorable action of this committee to amend the standard special provision. These projects or the reason for this is to provide the PNOC with flexibility to invest in investment opportunities that may arise, focusing on enhancing energy security by co-developing indigenous energy sources, accelerating the adoption of energy efficiency programs through new energy technologies, and supporting energy resiliency and disaster preparedness through mobile energy systems. That concludes my presentation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
you. Thank you for the presentation. We'll go to your subsidiaries. There are two subsidiaries, PNOC Exploration Corporation and PNOC RC. So we'll go with PNOC EC first for their presentation. We'll do the rounds first and then we'll open the floor for Q&A.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. We'd like to request our Vice President for Management Services Division, Mr. Candido Magsumbol, to present the report.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. So I'll be presenting PNOC projects accomplishments in our indicative work program and budget for 2025. Next slide, please. PNOC is the upstream petroleum and coal subsidiary of the Philippine National Oil Company with the primary mandate to explore, develop, and produce oil, gas, and coal. Shown in this, previous slide. Okay. Shown in this slide also are our vision and mission statements with a vision to be the leading energy exploration and production company in the country by 2030. As part of our mission, we are committed in the furtherance of national objective of energy security through exemplary performance in all our undertakings. PNOC's corporate operating budget does not form part of the general appropriations, and we do not receive subsidy from the national government. Funding for our programs, activities, and projects are sourced from our internal cash generation. Next slide, please. This shows the areas of operations of PNOC, where company holds interest in 8 petroleum service contracts, 4 operated by PNOC, while the remaining 4 are in joint venture with private petroleum companies. We also operate at 100% equity 2 coal operating contracts or COCs, namely COC 41 and 204, both located in Zamboanga, Sibugay Province. COC 41 is already in the development and production phase, while COC 204 is still in the exploration stage. Next slide, please. I will proceed to the highlights of the activities and what the company has been doing in our project since last year. For SC38 Malampaya, the consortium led by the operator Prime Energy continued production of natural gas and condensate. As you are aware, the SC38 contract is also renewed for another 15 years or until 2039, and that paves the way for the consortium to conduct further exploration and development activities within the service contract area outside the Malampaya Reservoir. These are aimed to find new reserves and extend the project life. The consortium continues to conduct the preparatory activities for the drilling and development of at least 2 commitment wells under the SC renewal terms. Also last year, PNOC farmed into service contract 6B, also in offshore Palawan, to acquire 20% equity share in the project. Preparatory activities by the operator, Nido Petroleum, are also ongoing for the drilling and testing of Kadlaw 4 well within the area. Next slide, please. For SC37 Cagayan Basin, we continue the drill site preparations and procurement of services and materials for both the drilling of Chico Prospect and the workover of a previous discovery, Mangosteen Prospect. The workover is aimed to test Mangosteen Reservoir's producibility and subsequently evaluate potential for commercial development and production. For SC57, Calamian in offshore Palawan, that PNOC operates 100%. PNOC completed the acquisition of 1,519 square kilometers of 3D seismic data in June of this year. The processing of the seismic data acquired is currently ongoing. Next slide, please. For other service contracts, in SC59, we have ongoing studies for the drilling of prospects already identified in the area. This is currently under force majeure due to West Philippine the issue, while for SC79, we have data purchase and ongoing interpretation of available seismic data. We also reviewed options for the conduct of geochemical survey or hydrocarbon SIP analysis as part of evaluation of the prospectivity of the area. We also continued evaluation of several domestic blocks for possible application or nomination to the DOE or farm-in if there are existing service contractors. Next slide. For our coal projects in COC 41, PNOC completed the development of Coal Mine 3, where we have ongoing production. Site preparation as part of the development of another mine, mine number 4, is also under COC 41 is ongoing. While for COC 204, we have ongoing exploration drilling and geophysical logging as part of the determination of reserve potential. The results will eventually be used in subsequent evaluation or studies if commercial development will be warranted. Next slide, please. This slide shows other accomplishments of PNOC. We generated 1.06 billion pesos of net income in 2023 and recorded 679 million net income in the first half of this year. From our prior year's income, PNOC declared in February and in March of this year, total of 2.002 billion pesos, comprised by 1.998 billion pesos remitted to the national government and 4 million to our public stockholders. Our corporate social responsibility activities, particularly in our project areas, are continuing. Just recently, we successfully maintained our ISO certification for quality management. Next slide, please. Having presented our recent accomplishments, we provide the highlights of our indicative budget for 2025. We're looking at 12.165 billion pesos requirement next year, 11.3 billion of which will be for exploration and production activities. This is broken further to petroleum development and production projects, Service Contract 38 and Service Contract 6B of 4.03 billion. Petroleum exploration of 5.45 billion and coal projects of 1.83 billion. The combined corporate OPEX and CAPEX of 700 million and 141 million respectively comprise only 7% of our total indicative budget for next year. Now, the following slides will show the major activities for our projects with the corresponding budget requirement. These are our projects under development and production where we require 4.034 billion pesos. In SC38, programs include the continued production in SC38 and the conduct of drilling of at least 2 commitment wells. For 6B, the drilling and production testing of Kadlaw Prospect are programmed. Next slide, please. In our petroleum exploration activities where we budgeted 5.45 billion, we continue our program to conduct the drilling and post-drilling evaluation of Chico Prospect in SC37. With the positive results, we plan to proceed to the planning for the appraisal of the prospect and conduct studies for field development to determine if commercial production will be warranted. We will also continue exploration works and studies for our other SCs and conduct of due diligence of opportunities in petroleum exploration, development, and production, both domestic and overseas. Next slide, please. For our coal projects, we expect to continue the production from our Coal Mine 3 while continuing the development and procurement of equipment and materials for our Mine 4, both under COC 41. Aside from continuing the exploration drilling and geophysical logging and mine development, we also program the evaluation and studies of new domestic coal areas. That's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll call on PNOC RC for their presentation.
On behalf of PNOCRC, I'm going to present the accomplishments of PNOCRC, including its plans, programs, and indicative budget for 2025. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. So we continue to abide or anchor our plans and programs with the our president's top agenda, which is the renewable energy development. It was pronounced in his latest one in 2022 and 2023, and recently the ASEAN Summit in Lao for 2024. So it is also in accordance with the DOE's Philippine Energy Plan. Next slide, please. So next slide. So PNOCRC's primary mandate. Next slide. So PNOCRC's primary mandate is to promote and undertake research, development, utilization, manufacture, sale, marketing, distribution, and commercial application of new renewable, non-conventional, and environment-friendly energy sources and systems. Next slide. So what are the challenges encountered by PNOCRC in handling or carrying out its mandate? So these are the following. So very broad mandate on renewable energy development. As capital intensive business, it has low seed capital of 706 million only, and it has changing strategic directions, which are non-sustainable initiatives. And lastly, non-empowerment of PNOCRC as the only government agency with a primary mandate in renewable energy development. So these are the accomplishments of PNOCRC for 2023, the operation and maintenance of existing renewable energy projects, signing of joint venture agreement, intensification of its solar rooftop projects with government agencies, continuation of technical services for operation and maintenance, continuation for technical services for pre-development activities of big ticket RE projects, and in support with DOE's government energy management program. So the details of the accomplishments in the next slide. So for operation and maintenance, we operated 2.57 megawatt solar rooftop installation in 13 government agencies. We have 1 megawatt Rizal hydropower plant. For the joint venture agreement, we signed the 1 megawatt station Agno River irrigation system. So for intensification of solar rooftop project, we have added additional 0.29 megawatt additional solar rooftop installation in government agencies. And we continue to provide technical services with the private sector in support of their or in partnership with their government agencies in pursuing solar rooftop in their agencies. So for technical services, we continue to operate and maintain the 20.20 megawatt solar rooftop project in House of Representatives. For technical services, continuation of pre-development activities for solar farm in Cagayan and wind project in Cagayan. So for GEM, we are able to turn over 375 energy audits of LGUs and completed 3 solar demo projects for the Department of Energy with a total installed capacity of 117 kilowatt peak. For the GEM project, we are now completing the uh, EBCS component of the GEM project with the Department of Energy. So next slide. Next slide, please. So as part of our operations, with carrying out its mandate for the last 16 years, we incurred a net loss of 37 million 2023 as compared to 2022 net loss of 15 million. So the remaining assets of PNOCRC as of December 31, 2023 is 794 million. So the same with total liabilities equities of 794 million. So next slide. So for 2024 accomplishment as of August 31, 2024, PNOCRC was able to continue to operate and maintain its existing renewable energy projects. We continuously communicate with the JV partner for the ARIS project, continuation of the implementation of the additional solar rooftop project with the Department of DOST, which started its commercial operations last month, and with the LGU. So technical services for ONM for HREP, and we continue to provide technical services for pre-development for 100 megawatt peak and 150 megawatt of wind power in Cagayan. And also we are continuing our efforts to continue the ABCS component of the DOE GAMP project. So that is the breakdown of our accomplishments. So this is the financial performance and position of PNOCRC. As of August 31, 2024, we incur a net loss of 22 million, and the remaining assets is 752 million. So next slide. So aside from the financial impact of accomplishments, we ensured that we have contributed to at least six of the 17 sustainable UN's sustainable development goals, which are the affordable, clean and energy, decent work, economic growth, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, and last year we have contributed at least 19,396 metric tons of uh, reduction in CO2 and sustainable cities and communities and strategic partnership with our private partners. So on the status of the turnaround plan of PNOCRC, for strategy one, which is to intensify efforts in the cash generation, we are able to collect the 52 million from PNOC for the BEP3 project, and we are able to improve our collection policy with the government agencies. So for the transfer of ownership and interest in renewable energy power plants, for MGI, the JV partners are still pending clarification on OGCC's right to tap as an exercise of right of first refusal. And for the 50% equity and Rizal hydropower project, our partner has an ongoing study whether to sell their interest in the project. For the sale of idle assets classified as investment property, we're still awaiting PNOCRC's Board of Directors direction. So on strategy two, which is to boost revenue generation and fiscal sustainability, we are improving our operation and maintenance of existing RE and EPA projects, and on the development of new renewable energy projects through solar rooftop installation in various government agencies and LGUs. So for 2023, next slide. Next slide, please. On the status of turnaround plan. Sorry. Okay. So for 2023, PNOC did not approve any capex for PNOC-RC. This is part of our PNOC President's strategic direction for PNOC. Two steps backward and one step forward for PNOC. So recently, there's a direction from PNOC, the abolition of 16 plantilla position, where we received the GCG memorandum order last September 27, 2024. And also last June, we received, or July 2024, we are able to receive a communication from PNOC informing PNOC-RC that the Board of Directors of PNOC approved the activation of PNOC-RC. However, as of date, the GCG is still conducting hearings for the recommendation. So on the continued engagement with existing private RE developers, we continue to engage with private RE developers as a part of our continuing efforts for fiscal sustainability. So the plans and programs for 2025 and onwards of PNOCRC. Next slide, please. So these are the plans. So we have to implement the status quo, reduce manpower cost. Second is the O&M of existing solar rooftop installation. We're still pursuing the sale of MGI and Rizal hydropower plant and the technical services for solar rooftop and EEC of government agencies. Next slide. However, for a positive outlook, if given another chance, PNOCRC will implement the renewable energy development in support of the DOE's PAP. So to continue, for 2025 and 2027, PNOCRC seeks clear and separate direction for renewable energy development and includes the IEECC resolution on PNOCRC as the lead in solar rooftop installation. And number two, status quo, reduce manpower cost, additional 3 megawatt solar rooftop installation. So this will be funded by the sale of MGI and Rizal hydropower plant. And lastly is the reorganization of PNOCRC. So for 2027 onwards, we really need the funding for solar rooftop installation because some government agencies did not have the sufficient budget to support the GEM project of the government. So next is additional 5 megawatt solar rooftop installation annually. And we also want to explore the microgrid system to improve the or to reduce the electricity cost of electric cooperatives and to pursue other RE projects. So PNOCRC as lead in GMP project. So the solar rooftop program in government agency. So why PNOCRC? PNOCRC has been engaged in solar rooftop projects since 2015. It was already recognized by the World Bank to be the lead implementing agency for GMP project and the sustainability of project. So we ensure the sustainability of project. So there is a 15-year cooperation period to support the O&M of its solar rooftop installation with government agencies. Also, we want to introduce the standardization of costing, up-to-date and new hidden cost for solar rooftop installation. Because based on our experience, from our we receive a lot of solicitations from various LGUs with varying budgets for solar rooftop installation. And lastly, this is to ensure prudence and responsible spending and GMP investments of LGUs and government agency. So this is our indicative budget for 2025 for total employee cost of 26 million. So MOE of 17 million, total OPEX of 43 million and CAPEX of 3 million. We have a proposed or indicative budget of 47 million. That's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Next will be fall on NPC, National Power Corporation.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, may I ask our Vice President for Admin and Finance, Mr. Chris Hilario, to present the details of our COP.
Honorable Presiding Chair, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, and to all the esteemed leaders and colleagues in the energy family, a pleasant good morning. Before I proceed in presenting our accomplishments and um, proposal for fiscal year 2025, allow me to have a quick review of our charter as a government-owned corporation. The NPC is the GOCC mandated to energize far-flung off-grid areas and islands in the Philippines. And we are able to fulfill this role through our power generation facilities called the Small Power Utilities Group. And as of June 2024, the corporation operates 165 SPUG power plants in 155 areas across 140 islands with a total dependable capacity of 185 megawatts. Now, 83 out of these 165 power plants provide 24-hour electricity service to 73 areas, while 63 power plants and areas provide electricity with less than 12 hours a day. So, on top of powering the islands, NPC is also mandated to perform effective and efficient management of the government's remaining power assets in Agus and Pulangi, the hydropower plants in Mindanao. And lastly, another mandate of the corporation is the management of 11 watershed areas and 5 large dams in Luzon to support power generation. Now, for our accomplishments for fiscal year 2023, next slide, please. As of December 2023 year end, 43% of the 1.314 billion allotment of NPC has already been obligated, and it has a validity of 2 years. Now, of the 564.82 million obligated, 16% or 92.475 million was already paid. Next slide, please. Now, in terms of physical accomplishments for fiscal year 2023, now by the end of 2023, NPC was able to complete a total of 1,139 circuit kilometers of transmission lines in the provinces of Palawan, Catanduanes, and Masbate. Next slide, please. Now, it was also able to upgrade and complete 220 MVA substation facilities by year end of 2023. Next slide, please. And to support its strategic thrust of lessening its reliance on diesel fuel, NPC was also able to complete the installation of 235 kilowatt peak for its renewable energy hybridization project. And for the first half of 2024, it has also substantially completed for testing and commissioning an additional 500 kilowatt peak, which will increase its total RE power generation source to 735 kilowatt peak. Next slide, please. Now, for the first half of fiscal year 2024, 60% of its total allotment of 1.316 billion was already obligated. And next slide, please. And by year end of 2024, we expect to complete an additional 28 circuit kilometers of transmission lines, an additional substation capacity of 35 MVA, and additional distribution lines of 49 circuit kilometers. That is our accomplishment for fiscal year 2023 and first half of fiscal year 2024. Now moving on to our proposed corporate operating budget for 2025, NPC is proposing 40.038 billion. And the breakdown of this proposed corporate operating budget is shown. Next slide, please. Of the 40.038 billion, 82% is allocated for maintenance and other operating expenses, of which more than a third, or 35%, which will be used for fuel and fuel hauling services. 11% is allocated for capital expenditure projects, and 7% for personnel services. Next slide, please. Now, as to the sources of the proposed budget, 82%, or 32.65 billion, of the proposed corporate operating budget is expected to be funded by the Universal Charge for Missionary Electrification, or UCME. 7.58%, or 3.035 billion, is to be subsidized by the national government. 5.88%, or 2.35 billion, is to be collected from households in the off-grid areas using the subsidized approved generation rate. And 4.46%, or 1.789 billion, will be funded from the operations and maintenance fees paid by PISAL for their Agus and Pulangi hydropower plants, while 207.31 million will be sourced from the Universal Charge for Environment, or UCEC. Incidentally, Honorable Chair, we would also like to seek the endorsement of the committee in highlighting the urgency of obtaining ERC approval for at least 11.54 billion of our pending true-up application or petition. We would like to highlight that for every billion peso that NPC is not able to reimburse by the year end of 2024, to be used to pay primarily for our fuel expenses, NPC will be constrained to curtail electricity service by 2.1 hours beginning March 2025 next year, affecting close to 1.78 million households, mostly located in remote provinces or off-grid areas. Now, moving on to our major programs and activities. Next slide, please. Okay. So, of the 3.035 billion proposed national government subsidy for NPC, 1.621 billion will be allotted for the total missionary electrification program, where NPC is committed to provide clean and affordable electricity by undertaking various renewable energy hybridization projects, establishing power system reliability and resilience with investments in transmission, distribution, and substation facilities, and access to electricity, reaching out to the households in the remote areas. Next slide, please. Now, last week, the Department of Energy, during their presentation in this honorable committee, reported that a total of 1.92 million household out of the 27.9 households nationwide still remain unserved or has no access to electricity. Now, according to the DOE's Total Electrification Project Steering Committee last March 2024, around 500,000 of these households are located in off-grid remote island locations or missionary electrification areas that are deemed economically unviable by electric cooperatives and private distribution utilities. This is where we are serving, Honorable Chair. And of the 500,000 households, NPC, as articulated in its missionary electrification program for 2025 to 2029, aims to provide access to electricity to the remaining 6,000 to 11,178 households. Next slide, please. Now, by 2025 year end, we would like to increase our total NPC SPUG plants from 165 to 201. We'd like to increase our service areas from 150 to 191 areas and from 140 to 176 islands. And we also aim to increase the total number of power plants providing 24-hour service from 83 to 98. This concludes our budget presentation, Honorable Chair. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you. Thank you for that. We go to PSAM.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. I'm here to talk about our proposed 2025 corporate budget. Next slide, please. Next slide. So PISAM has three main mandates and functions. We are the government and GOCC to privatize and manage the remaining generation assets of NAPOCOR. We are to liquidate the financial obligations and administer the universal charge. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. As to our accomplishments, as of June 30, 2024, we have privatized at least 82% of the generation assets, equaling 9,026 megawatts. We have privatized the transmission business via concession agreement for 25 years, and we have disposed of around 1,771 lots, equaling out of 2,573 lots. Next slide. We have received 803 million privatization proceeds from the privatization efforts of PISAM. Next slide. And for the year 2024, we have collected about 29.11 private proceeds coming from different activities from the sale of generation assets, appointment of IPPAs, and the concession agreement with NGCP. Next slide. This is a profile of the remaining assets of PISAM. We have the Agus and Pulangi power plants in Mindanao, the CPK Hydro Power Plant in Luzon, and our Mindanao Coal-Fired Power Plant also in Mindanao, Mr. Chair. Next slide. We have reduced the total financial obligations by 78% from 1.2 trillion pesos in 2003 to 277 billion in June of 2024. Next slide. This is the total amount of financial obligations that we have paid from 2001 to June of 2024, amounting to about 2 billion pesos. 2 trillion pesos. With regards to the universal charge for ME, for renewable energy development cash incentive or the Red Sea, the environmental charge, the stranded contract costs and stranded debt, which are the 5 universal charges, we have collected and disbursed 277.58 billion pesos. Next slide. With regards to our accomplishments during the PBBM administration, we have privatized the Kasektan Hydropower Plant and turned it over to the winning bidder on Feb of 2024. We have disposed 14 real estate lots. We became the direct member for Lazareco Megalco, which led to the successful implementation of Western Mindanao. And we have entered into various power supply agreements with electric cooperatives in Luzon and Mindanao. We have reduced our financial obligations by 22%. We have collected about 102 billion privatization proceeds, and we've remitted 2.7 billion pesos to the National Treasury. And we've collected and remitted close to 48 billion pesos worth of universal charge funds. Next slide. For our priority areas in 2024 and beyond, we hope to privatize the CBK power plant, the Mindanao coal-fired power plant, and various prime real estate assets such as Bagak and Diliman. We will continue to, with regards to our asset management, we will continue to operate and maintain Agus Pulangi based on our operations and maintenance agreement with Napacor, and continue to sell the energy from those power plants to various customers in Mindanao. Next slide, please. We will also continue to service the remaining or the maturing financial obligations of 277 billion pesos. We will continue to manage our proceeds coming from our power assets, the MKE funding, and continue to provide the budget for Napacor through the MOA and Transco. Next slide. And lastly, with regards to our remaining mandates, we will continue to efficiently manage the universal charge. We hope to successfully litigate our remaining pending cases in court. And with regards to the corporate life of PSAM, we hope to extend the corporate life of PSAM, which expires in June of 2026. With regards to our proposed 2025 corporate budget, we are proposing 158.37 billion pesos, broken down as follows: for personal services, 470 million, for MOE, 157.87 billion, and for CAPEX, about 30 million pesos. This is just a further breakdown, highlighting that the majority of our budget is for the payment of debts and IPP lease obligations, purchase power costs, and various funding for Napocor, Transco, and our purchases in WESM. Next slide. This is a comparison between our 2024 and 2025 budget. As you can see, Mr. Chair, there's a reduction of about 42 billion pesos, mainly driven by the reduction in our payments of debts and IPP lease obligations and purchase power costs. Next slide, please. That ends my presentation, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Let's open the floor for Q&A. I'll start off with PNOC, and traditionally, and for those of you who worked in the government sector for many years and experienced the budget deliberation for many years, normally it's the head of office who will come here to defend their budget. That's a matter of tradition and at the same time a matter of policy for both the lower house and the upper house, the Senate in particular. And my first question is, where is the President and CEO of PNOC-RC?
Mr. Chair, I was informed this morning that he's sick and he
And
cannot attend the meeting today, sir.
and if that is the case, we of course tao lang naman tayo lahat, nagkakasakit tayo. We acknowledge that. The next question is, typically you have to get or you have to submit to the committee doctor certificate. to prove that your excuse is valid. I have the excuse letter here, but I don't see any certificate.
So, Mr. Chair, I already informed his secretary about the medical certificate you requested, and he replied that he will give it as soon as possible.
Can you give it before the end of this hearing?
Noted.
I plan
Mr.
to
Chair.
end this hopefully in 3 to 4 hours time. So can you call your president and to give me the doctor's certificate within 3 to 4 hours time?
Noted, Mr. Chair.
Or else we will defer the budget of the entire PNOC family, which is your lodge under PNOC.
Noted, Mr. Chair.
So why don't you call him and to furnish this committee the doctor's certificate within 3 to 4 hours time. And we allowed you to present your budget so that we will already have an idea on your plans and programs in 2025. We allowed you as the representative of PNOCRC, but to further deliberate the budget, we require the head of agencies to be present. Just to be fair, no? The other head of agencies are here. The president and CEO of NPC is here. The president and CEO of PNOC mother company is here. PNOC EC president is also here. Last time, during the budget deliberation of DOE and ERC and NEA, all the head of agencies were here. No? So I'm not inclined to give special treatment to a PNOCRC. No? So just furnish us the doctor's certificate to prove that this excuse letter is valid before within 2 to 3 hours time.
Will do, Mr. Chair.
All right. So with that, I'll defer the questioning to PNOCRC pending the pending submission of the doctor's certificate. I'll go to the PNOC mother and President Butalid. I was observing the presentation. My first question is, I was observing the presentation of our PNOCRC and PNOC mother company, and I think we all agree that there's almost everything is an overlap. PNOCRC is presenting their plans and programs on expanding their renewable energy portfolio. Looking at your plans and programs, you're also shifting to renewable energy. So I'm confused.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I think the differentiation really is on scale. PNOCRC does not have the financial capacity to really roll out a meaningful rooftop solar program that will impact the government sector. And so you're correct. PNOC Mother and the board decided that it will be one of three objectives in 2025. So the second objective I discussed earlier was really to enable many government agencies that want to comply with the interagency energy efficiency mandate, but they do not have the capex or even the expertise to put up their own rooftop solar. So we have already, in fact, to date, signed MOAs with major agencies, PEZA, TESDA, NEDA, NFA, and there are many water districts. And so there is a very strong clamor for this to be implemented. And aside from scale, maybe the second differentiation, Mr. Chair, is the value proposition. So we are giving better prices. For instance, for we are giving RC before gave a 5% discount versus the utility rate. We are willing to give up to 20% depending on the location and scale versus the utility rate. So the value proposition is better. And so the intention really is for RC to conserve its remaining cash because really PNOC wants to play a role in terms of the bigger energy infrastructure for the future. And so the board decided that we propose to GCG not to abolish RC, but to deactivate RC. And the idea is over a number of years, as PNOC will be able to install maybe next year, hopefully 20 megawatts, and maybe after that more. The maintenance and operating of this will be hopefully at that time, if we strengthen RC, they can take that role of MOE. So that is the plan, Mr. Chair, to deactivate RC for now because they have their overhead expenses cannot be covered by the level of revenue that they have because of the very limited projects that they can come up with.
So what you're saying, Mr. Butalid, is PNOC Mother will undertake similar projects with PNOC RC. The only difference is PNOC Mother can do it in scale, bigger projects. Therefore, you have economies of scale, and with that, you can deliver substantial savings for both the client and also the supplier.
That is one, and of course now even some of their projects, Mr. Chair, um, are funded by the proponent, by the building owner. In our case, we will fund the capex for the entire installation. So, so this is, like I mentioned, a better value proposition. That is why there are many government agencies now that have expressed interest to collaborate with the PNOC for this energy efficiency initiative.
I, I'm trying to understand the shift, no? Because as we all know, the initial direction of PNOC once upon a time was oil and gas. No, I mentioned this to you during the last uh, budget hearing, and then after that, um, over the years, it shifted its focus to energy. In general. That's why once upon a time it even planted Jatropa, diba? Nothing happened to that, obviously. We all know that. It went into many projects. I'll show that later on. But but to be honest about it, if you look at the projects historically and the projects now, I feel like it's just being done out of survival, meaning PNOC has to survive so that it's making or proposing a hodgepodge of projects without really generating any substantial return for the company. And when I say return, not only financial return, but also impact to society, impact to the sector. I'll show I gathered the list of projects. Yung list of projects ng Pientos. Nasaan na yun? Yung historical projects. Yung mga historical facts. iPad. I have a list of historical. I'll show it later on. This one. This one. Yan. I'll flash it on the screen. This is since 2017. I've been hearing the budget of the Department of Energy and all of its subsidiaries starting 2000, I think 2019. Just flash that. Flash ko lang. Merong LNG hub project, merong energy supply base, meron strategic petroleum reserve. All of these are funded over the past few years because we to give some leeway and also to respect the decision of the management, we always approve the funding of these projects. Development of oil storage facilities, PNOC Industrial Park yan. Ito. This is only 2017 when I became the chairman of the Energy Committee as well as the chairman of the subcommittee. And then you have hybridization of off-grid areas, solar rooftop PV system, of course, charging station, and so on. No? To be honest about it, ang na-realize lang dito yung sale of bank gas. Pero wala na yun, sunk cost na yun sa atin. If you don't sell it, then it's a loss for government. But if you look at the entire list here, out of the 16, the only one that the country realized was number 2, the sale of monetization of bank gas. No, so and I say this objectively. I'm not nothing personal, Mr. Butalid, but I say this as part of my job evaluating the budget of the different agencies. That PNOC in the past have always been requesting for money for projects, pushing different types of projects, but nothing actually are realized in all of these proposals. And if you also look at the projects, if you look at all of this list, it seems to me it's a hodgepodge of projects. There is no clear direction where PNOC wants to go. No? And how PNOC wants to contribute to society and to the country. That's the message or the analysis that I'm getting from all of these proposals. And now we're actually proposing many projects. Once again, I'll show the list of projects, and you have actually allocated some amounts. For example, rooftop solar PV system for government projects is 120 million. I'll show it later on. And then you also want to go to retail and electricity supply, 500 million. Then a PNOC self-generating industrial park, 750 million. These are not small amounts. If I get this money, I can complete all the backlog for school buildings in the next 2 years. No? Then you have offshore wind integration port, which personally I agree because this is what is lacking right now. Then you have PNOC micro hydro development project using vortex turbines, 300 million, and then you have charging stations, 22 million. So these are not some change. No, these are not small amounts. We're talking about billions of pesos in terms of projects. But if you look at the list of these projects, in my opinion, there's no direction. I can't seem to get what is the relationship between the charging station and then to RES and then to hydro power plants. No, so um, that's what I'm getting in this proposal. So my question, Mr. Butalid, President, um, how did you conceptualize these projects? No? What is the direction of all of these projects? Because you have a charging station, then you're also going to a RES. So how are these projects conceptualized? Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Um, this list was generated early this year, April, and a lot has happened already since the time we made this, and so there have been adjustments. But let me just say, Mr. Chair, that in one talk that Secretary Lutilia gave to our employees, he mentioned that the intent really of PNOC, and he gathered this from a conversation with Secretary Velasco, the first PNOC and also DOE Secretary, that the role of PNOC is really to play the role of sort of the investment arm of DOE. And so I think it is a very, it is something that we have internalized now, that it is very important to align the investment direction of PNOC to the policy direction of DOE. And well, I cannot speak for the period before 2023, Mr. Chair, but I think today the energy direction is very well articulated. It is in the Philippine Energy Plan, and as a principle in terms of identifying projects, that is what we are trying to refer to. And so, for instance, I grouped our possible investment areas into the three objectives that I presented earlier. So, number one, offshore wind. That is a very important item because it is a nascent industry. There is not a single offshore wind turbine still operating, but the potentials are established as very significant. And so the industry now, for instance, the wind developers, they're waiting for signals. No, there are many determinants they're looking at: the marine grid, price signaling for the auction next year, and of course the logistics. And so that is what we are trying to support. And so, as I mentioned last year, even without a financial impact study, the board of PNOC immediately um, expressed its commitment to repurpose the ESB port, knowing that there's a significant potential of the Mindoro wind corridor, and we are very strategically located. So that is an example of really, you can say, changing course, but changing course for good reason. And so we had to do away with the study, which was made earlier before the pronouncement of, for instance, EO 21, the EO of the president wanting to fast track the offshore wind development. So even if there was already 23 million study for for expanding the commercial cargo handling capacity of the port, we had to shift because that is the policy guideline. Uh, the second uh, the second strategy or group of projects under the second strategy I mentioned in my presentation is to promote energy efficiency. So that is the solar is the fastest to deploy and most meaningful in terms of the government agencies who want to support the energy efficiency initiatives because their their electric bills will go down, and they can really, in terms of their CSR, they can claim that they are participating meaningfully in the overall effort to shift to green energy. The RES, Mr. Chair, is strategic because we have a situation like I had a conversation or a meeting with NIA, National Irrigation Authority. So they have a budget to put up solar installations in remote pumping stations for their irrigation. And and the reason they have to resort to this is because the reliability of certain electric cooperatives, especially in these very remote areas to be irrigated or far-flung areas, is not that good. So they have to put up solar um, power to support these pumping stations. And the problem is the solar, the pumping stations only run half of the year. And so they are not allowed in their mandate to sell the electricity from the solar, which will continue to generate even if they will not use the pumps the rest of the year. And so they cannot, it's not in their mandate to sell to the market, to the electric co-ops or to SM. And so they would need an entity like PNOC to play the rest role for this. So this is an example. And the third objective I mentioned is to support NPC. So we saw that there is a lot of subsidies in the past 3 years, 25 billion in subsidies. And so we think we can deploy technology, not only solar. And there are many new technologies now that are very suitable for remote islands. So this is the direction, Mr. Chair. While it may look like a hodgepodge, it really is united to these three objectives that I mentioned. Now, pertaining to the matter that we are not anymore, or we have strayed from the original mandate to promote oil projects. That is true because it was a government decision to exit the downstream industry, and our other ASEAN national oil companies, they're very large, Petronas and Pertamina and PTT. They are very strong in that area. But in our case, we have decided as a government to exit from the oil industry. Nonetheless, we are entertaining proposals for micro refineries. We have not yet established the viability, but there have been some investors who have proposed new technology, which is supposed to be well uh, make it lower cost for diesel, especially in the remote areas. So we are also going into that, and we are also um, improving our collaboration with our ASEAN counterparts, NOCs, they call it, national oil companies. In fact, in the past, Pertamina and Petronas CEOs have not been investing in the Philippines. Now they're looking at areas where we can collaborate. So these are the insights, Mr. Chair. It's not really um, that there is no rhyme and rhythm to the projects we are proposing, but it's really on what clear direction, policy direction is coming out of DOE in the PEP and other initiatives they would like us to look at. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for the answer. I appreciated your explanation during the last budget hearing, 2023, on the refocusing of the ESB from energy to wind, no? From purely an energy development area, the energy supply base, ESB, into an offshore wind port. No? I remember during our discussion in the budget hearing and as well as of the budget hearing, you explained to me and to the committee the repurposing of that facility. And I do acknowledge, that the repurposing seems to be a good direction because offshore wind, as explained to me, needs a lot of logistical support from government. And I do admit that, um, uh, building an offshore wind facility is really a challenge. It's not as simple as just putting, the wind pillars and connecting it to the grid, and it will already inject power. Transporting the pillars, transporting the turbines, making sure that it doesn't have any environmental um, degradation or environmental impact, making sure that the livelihoods of the community is sustainable or sustained. It takes a lot of um, logistical support as well as um, um, government support. So I admit that. No, also with onshore wind is also the same. No, just bringing the turbines to the mountains is really a big challenge. Already, that's why after the discussion on the repurposing of the ESB facility to become offshore wind uh, port facility, we supported that because I also support the rollout of our offshore wind projects in our country. Truly feel that that's a potential that we have not yet tapped into, no? And the whole world is going into that already. So we supported that. However, the other projects seems to me parang it's not my view always for government is it has to be um, government should be the catalyst uh, should catalyze the projects in order for the private sector to join in. It has this effect, no? And uh, for example, when I was looking at the REST project, which is a big amount, no, almost half a billion pesos. Um, why is PNOC going into the REST project, no? And why 556 million pesos is allocated to the REST project?
Um, the assumption for that figure, Mr. Chair, is multi-year, 3 years, just 10 megawatts actually. Because of course, when we will be a rest, we will have to um, contract with suppliers, either RE companies or other suppliers. Um, and it is a requirement that we need to have a budget that covers, for instance, the typical contract period for rest now is about 3 years. So we have to show that we have enough. We have the budget to support, for instance, 10 megawatts on a multi-year because we will be entering into 3-year contracts with suppliers. That is the reason, Mr. Chair. So it will not be expended on a single year.
We were looking at the ERC um, resolution to establish a REST. You only need 5 million pesos to establish a REST. How come we here in this project, PNOC requested 556 million pesos?
The 5 million is for the registration. Actually, in our case, the license
The
fee.
license, correct,
The
right.
license fee. Yeah, in our case, actually, because the license amount is pegged on the assets of PNOC, so we will be paying higher, 23 million. But that is not the license fee. That is the value of the contracts with suppliers, either RE suppliers or base load suppliers, whatever contract we will have with the government agency that we will enter into. That is the contract amounts we estimate covering 3 years only at 10 megawatts. So, and the reason why we have to put it, even if it's a multi-year, is because at the time we will sign these 3-year contracts, which is the typical term for RES contracts, we have to show that we have the budget approved to enter into those contracts.
Yeah, typically, address is you just sell electricity, di ba? So you're like a middleman. Eh. You're like para kang ahente. You're like an agent. Um, so I'm trying to understand why do we need to allocate 556 million if you're just an agent? Where will the 556 million go?
So, in the case of my example earlier, for instance, NIA, maybe they will not require that because it will be. But for there are certain cases wherein maybe our government, because we will only be selling power to government. That is the intention to be able for government entities to get the lowest possible generation rate. So. If there is a need for us to enter into a contract with, um, for instance, a base load plant, we have to cover that in amount for 3 years. Although you're correct, it is a in and out. Like we will get paid monthly, and we will also pay the supplier monthly. But we need to show that the contract amount is covered in a budget. That is the reason, Mr. Chair. But it is really you're correct, a trading business model.
Correct. That's what I understand how RES operates. So the 556 million seems to be quite substantial, no? And quite significant for a RES operation. Do we have a feasibility study for this PNOC RES project?
Um, we do not have yet because actually we still have to. Yeah, we have a business plan which we submitted actually to ERC. This is one of the important aspects that ERC evaluates. So we have a business plan, and this has been already reviewed by ERC.
Okay, just submit to us the business plan. I'll go to another project. This self-generating industrial park project. I understand that this is an industrial park.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So we intend to pilot this concept in two off-grid islands, Tawi-Tawi and Dinagat. And the idea is, well, industrial dispersal, because as we know, 70% of industrial activities in the country is basically concentrated on perhaps three provinces in north of Manila and the three provinces south of Manila. That is where all industrial activities are. And this is also the areas where land is very costly, labor is very costly. And so the idea is also to support the industrial dispersal objectives. And so a place like Dinagat and the Tawi-Tawi are suitable for this project because we want to create well base load capacity um 24/7 there using LNG modular generators. And in fact, Mr. Chair, we have had meetings already with both Petronas and Pertamina, and they're willing to support this project by delivering small-scale LNG if this project will proceed.
Why did we choose Tawi-Tawi and Dinagat? Is there? I know they're very remote actually. No, they're very remote areas, um, and they're not really the most popular for manufacturing companies to go into. No, because of the distance from the port area, distance from the market. Typically, manufacturing companies, they would like to stay close to Metro Manila because we have the market here. So if they sell their goods, it's close to the demand area. As well as they prefer locating near the port, so logistically it's easier. No? And when I say port, no, these are the major ports with major port facilities. But so why did we choose Tawi-Tawi and Dinagat? Is there a and then second, uh, where do we put that industrial park? So I'm envisioning there's a plot of land and you will convert that into an industrial park. So is there ready land in Tawi-Tawi and Dinagat Island?
Yes, Mr. Chair. In the case of Tawi-Tawi, 60% of all seaweed production of the country comes from Tawi-Tawi, and these are shipped to Cebu and other areas for processing to Karajinan. Also, a lot of the sardines and tuna, which used to be focused on the Gensan, is now actually caught in the waters of Tawi-Tawi. And so the governor has already consolidated 25 hectares there. And in fact, using their own funds, are already developing the port. So the only missing element really for this is the supply of energy. Right now, the Tawi-Tawi is relying only on diesel generation of NPC, and so this is the best first model of this self-generation industrial park, because the Governor Sally is confident that immediately, with the availability of 24/7 power there, sardine companies and tuna canning companies and seaweed processing companies will relocate there, because that is where these materials are harvested.
So the land is already there.
Yes, Mr. Chair. In both cases of Dinagat and Tawi-Tawi, that is the understanding that it is the provincial government that will acquire and consolidate the land.
And you will put a power plant.
Modular power plants, Mr. Chair. The LNG generators are bought in 4 megawatt container vans. Um, these are basically what they call plug and play equipment. You just import the container, and we are told it is about $1 million per megawatt. So the advantage of these modular LNGs is, unlike before, if you start an LNG plant, it has to be of scale. And once it is of scale, then that is very difficult to justify, because um, you can't get the load corresponding to that scale from day one. In this case, it can be added as there is interest to locate there.
Is there so you're planning to put LNG generators to power the self-generating industrial plants?
Yes, just to be a catalyst, but as it will become bigger, I'm sure other private sector operators will want to come in. So our goal really, Mr. Chair, is um, to be the first. I mean, of course, we understand there are many private investors, but of course, their risk appetite is low because they're accountable to their shareholders. So even if we believe the elements for success are high, it is still risky because it has never been tried. So PNOC, playing the catalyst role, we will invest only in the first few megawatts, and then once we prove that it is sustainable, we are certain that there will be more investors, private investors. So that is our role, basically, Mr. Chair, to open opportunities for players to come in underserved areas.
Do we have a a feasibility study for this? The same question. Did we study this, and did we have, let's say, the typical feasibility study, a rate of payback period, a rate of return? Do we have all of those studies?
So these are fairly recent developments, Mr. Chair. We actually visited Tawi-Tawi only 2 months ago. Only yesterday, we had a meeting with PEZA, the Director General Panga, and TESDA also. So this is still taking shape, but definitely we will fund a feasibility study for this. And in fact, we will have a workshop with the Tawi-Tawi planning people and PNOC by the end of the month.
Mm.
So this is one of the examples of being a catalyst just to start a certain business model that will hopefully catch on with private investors.
Mm-mm. I support that. No, I really believe that government should have that catalyst role. But this catalyst role should be calculated to 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 make sure that losses or risk is minimized. Um, like I said, no, resources, especially budget, is really very it's very scarce, no, in government. It's actually very difficult to raise revenue, um, and that's why we need to make sure that every budget, whether it's corporate in nature or it's JA, we have to make sure that every peso spent uh, translates to productive outputs, whether it's through profit, through creates positive outputs to society or to the whole country. It has to have that positive output and also minimize risk, because being a catalyst always have its risk. That's why it's important to come up with feasibility study and study it very well. That despite all of this risk, we will create positive outputs and the community will benefit. Now, in this case, for example, if you are saying that Tawi-Tawi seaweed farmers will benefit, then how many seaweed farmers will benefit? How much of their income will increase? This type of studies should be well documented, or else we're just with all due respect, we're just throwing money without really knowing will it impact um, the local community. No, in this case, diba? I do admit that no, we can help the seaweed farmers, but by how much, no? And by how many? No, those are the things. I don't know if you've studied that. No, those are the things that if you perform a catalyst role, should be documented very well.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we realize that. In fact, I can confidently assure you our risk committee, composed of the 4 private sector directors, are very rigorous. They're all from the private sector. They're all seasoned in investment, and we will definitely have a detailed study about this before we actually put money into this. In fact, Mr. Chair, that's the reason why until now we have not spent anything yet for the ESB repurposing, because we are really looking for options wherein it will not be necessary anymore for PNOC to actually fund the construction. So we have been fortunate to receive a lot of queries using new technology, using a combination of business models. So that is very much top of mind of PNOC, Mr. Chair, that every investment, every project we will go to will be rigorously vetted and studied. We assure you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for that assurance. Another project that I saw is the hydro development project using vortex turbines. Have we conducted a feasibility study on this project? Because you are PNOC is requesting 300 million for to fund that project.
This is a project introduced to us by the Belgian government. It's a very innovative project, patented. It came from Belgium, from a PhD student dissertation, and now the this vortex is sort of a breakthrough because even run-of-river projects, Mr. Chair, it takes a long time to get through the social acceptability because you have to put a structure across the river. There's a lot of things to consider. This technology is very fast to deploy and can be deployed even in slow water speed of as slow as 2 meters per second and can generate electricity for a drop of only 1 meter. So it uses a vortex technology that enables the generating of power in the most remote areas. So we are piloting this in a remote area in the Visayas, in Cebu, the southernmost portion, a 125 kilowatt. It's a grant from the Belgian government. And so once we will be able to have this proof of concept, although it is already deployed in Indonesia and other developing countries, once we have this, then we will scale up. Then we will be able um, to have a feasibility study. So we're still in the construction of the pilot project, Mr. Chair. But this is a very exciting development in terms of hydro.
I again, President Butalid, um, I know you have a board, you have a management, and you discuss all of these things to your board. You make the proposals, but I strongly suggest that um, we have a clear direction on where PNOC wants to go, and it's important. Personally, no, I don't subscribe to government competing with the private sector. It's one of those things that we need to have discipline on. In fact, I was looking at I'll flash this. No, the a GCG um, ownership and operations manual for the for GOCC sector. And they talked about in Article 11, I'll flash it. They talked about competitive neutrality, and I'm sure you've come across this term. No, competitive neutrality in simple terms is if the private sector is already present and they're doing well in that area, then government should not compete, no, with the private sector for obvious reason. Number one, the capitalization of government is much bigger. No, it has almost a big. They can raise money and they have bigger capitalization. And number two, um, the private sector can do it better. The private sector, since they're driven by shareholder value, shareholder return, they can do it much more efficiently. So, and this concept is espoused in the GCG ownership and operations manual, no, that all GOCC should subscribe to. So my strong suggestion to PNOC is to, number one, really come up with a clear direction. And I again, no, my 2 cents worth of suggestion is to maintain that catalyst role, because that catalyst role is something that PNOC has in its power. No, and that catalyst role can unlock a lot of potential for the country, but it's also important to minimize risk and making sure that the catalyst role really yields to benefits to our country. And then number two, my suggestion also is to really avoid this competitive neutrality. Because andyan in private sector, they can do it. No, they can given the opportunity, given the guidance, they can actually build. For example, they can build your um, solar rooftop for government buildings. Uh, the private sector are also into big hydro as well as run of river hydro. I know they're also some companies are now aggressively putting charging stations. And in fact, the EV law or the EVIDA law gives DOE the power to um, dictate to the dictate to the developers, to the property developers, to already include charging station. So my point there, no, my point of the matter is, if the private sector is already present in a particular industry, allow them to flourish, no, in that particular industry, while government maintains its, like you said, no, and I agree with you, the catalyst role. Yan talaga ang role ng government. So with all due respect, I can see that you have some list of project, and with all due respect, I really feel that these projects are just created so that meron tayong projects na gagawin, no? And also the other part is the feasibility study, no? I always request for feasibility studies because at the end of the day, I'm accountable to the people. Eh. You know, people will ask me why we approve these budgets. Uh, People will ask me why I supported these budgets or these projects. I should be able to tell them with extreme clarity, and that these projects will yield to profits, to value, to societal returns. No, so I know that you are aware of your accountabilities. I'm also aware of my accountabilities, and one of my guiding principles to whenever I hear project is I should be able to justify it to the public on why we approve these projects. So the feasibility study is a critical document for us to understand the rationale on why PNOC went into these projects. However, I understand that some of them are work in progress, some of them are not yet being developed. So I please submit to us uh, a feasibility study of all of those projects that you have proposed. Can you flash the projects again, Carla? Um, this committee will approve will have to make a decision whether to approve or not to approve your projects, but the one of the most critical documents for us to decide or to make a decision is the feasibility study to enable us to understand that these projects are worthwhile, and the public will benefit from this project. So just submit to the committee a list, the feasibility or the business plan of all of these projects, so that we'll be guided accordingly. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I appreciate your observations. And in fact, I will say I agree 100% to what you have said, that number one, PNOC's value is really to play the catalyst role. And number two, we should not compete with the private sector, or what you quoted, competitive neutrality. So on the catalyst role, Mr. Chair, the um, case um, of entertaining different technologies, micro hydro, solar, wind. These are all relatively new technologies that we are hoping will be deployed in the 100 or so NPC areas. And so um, I agree that private sector can and should be interested to utilize these cutting or new technologies from other countries to solve the problems of the off-grid areas. But of course, the first mover appetite for something untried is relatively low in terms if from the point of view of the private sector. So it's true they are the engine of growth, but in terms of initiating new technologies, many of the established energy companies will not prioritize deploying their funds in off-grid areas using new technology. So we want to play a catalyst role there. And we already have 4 technology partners. We will have, like you mentioned, Mr. Chair, everything will be done gradually and systematically. We will only start with one project, get data, determine the actual viability from actual field tests before we will even scale up. So every project will be backed up by a study. But the first thing really is to find what we think is a suitable technology for the off-grid areas, and then procure this model units, and then have a field test. Then we will have actual data, because these are technologies that have been tested in other countries but not yet in the Philippines. And so the only, well, in terms of the rooftop, Mr. Chair, you are correct. This is a very well developed industry. There are many reputable rooftop solar installers. In fact, the many multinational industries in eco zones already have rooftop solar. Many of the malls, many of the big establishments have already rooftop solar. But in terms of government, there are a limited number of private solar companies. Number one, who will agree to a business model front of capitalizing the entire cost and then recovering it over a long period of time. The payback period for a rooftop system is about 7 years. So most of the private installers are actually EPC. So the industry is really composed of EPC solar installers. There are very few who actually are have the business model of entering into long-term contracts with government, because they perceive this to be a collection risk. They say, well, the government changes, heads change every so many years, and so maybe it's good for the first few years, and then later on they cannot collect. So there is some hesitancy of reputable companies to service the needs of government entities. So we are doing this, and after we will prove, Mr. Chair, that government institutions are stable clients, that there is really no implementation and collection risk. I'm sure it will be it will encourage the private sector to service more government, and we will exit this particular segment. So actually, we don't have any installers, Mr. Chair. We will um, award the contracts to the EPC contracts to private companies. So it is actually not competing with private companies. We are actually enabling EPC solar companies um, to do what they're good at, which is to install high quality solar panels using tier one solar panels, tier one inverters, very well designed. So we are tapping the best of the private sector EPC contractors. It is just that PNOC is funding it, and even if we get our returns back in 7 years, that's okay with us. So it is not really, we don't view it as we are competing. We are enabling the EPC solar panel contractors, Mr. Chair.
So in that project, the solar rooftop PV system, the request is 120 million pesos. The counterparty here is PNOC Mother.
Yes, we are the counterparty of each government
Each government agency.
agency.
And the PNOC Mother will now engage a private EPC contractor to put up the facility.
Yes, every building is publicly bidded. So every building we put it up, and many EPC compete for every building because these buildings are in different locations. So we have already bidded out, I think, because we just started maybe 6 or 7 buildings. These are typically 100 kilowatt peak to 300 kilowatt peak. Own use, Mr. Chair. So we are setting for government buildings own use, not net metering.
And the 120 is really the initial capital because by engaging the private EPC contractor, you'll be in short, you'll be putting in the capital first. You pay them to put up the facilities, and the government agencies will pay you based on the savings.
Not based on the savings, based on the kilowatt hour produced and used.
Okay. Okay. All right. Right. Well, again, let's study it's careful. Do you have any?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
There's a feasibility study for
Every
this.
building,
Okay.
because every building has a different demand curve, no load. Yeah, so some buildings are operating 7 days a week. So these are like the pumping station of water districts, hospitals. Then there are some buildings that don't have office on Saturdays and Sundays, so they have a different demand curve. So every building has a different load profile.
Just submit to us the feasibility study of this solar rooftop government buildings project.
We have, Mr. Chair, and it is like I mentioned, we have a study per building,
Yeah.
and the average IRR is 12+%.
Hmm.
12+%, and the average payback period is 6 to 7 years, depending on the load profile.
Okay. And that will cost everything will be the cost of everything is 120 million.
Actually, this will only be because, like I mentioned, we prepared this in April, so this is only for 2 megawatts. We actually, because of the very high level of interest, we have already closed contracts now of 6 megawatts. We targeted less than 1 megawatt in April for this year. It's now 6 megawatts, and we targeted for next year 2 megawatts. And we have now adjusted the target to 20 megawatts because it's really something that all of these agencies have been waiting for.
Mhm. So just submit to the committee because these are all project proposals. And typically, if you request from your board the project proposal, you always have a feasibility study and you elaborate to the board your returns, your payback period, and all the benefits that the projects will yield. So all of this definitely have um, uh, all of these projects that you're proposing should have a feasibility study at the very least. So just submit to to the committee so that we will study it one by one. Again, the direction, my direction is to be able to explain to the public that all of these projects will truly benefit all of us. No, whether it's the local community or the entire country. Uh, I should be able to explain this to the public clearly. That these are money well spent. That's the objective of why we want to understand much deeper the rationale behind these projects.
Mr. Chair, for every building that our board approves, we will enter into a MOA. There is a study for every building because we gather data. The kilowatt hours are based on actual kilowatt hours of that building for a certain period of time. So we have that for rooftop. For the SGIP, Mr. Chair, for Dinagat and Tawi-Tawi, we don't have a feasibility study yet. But that will that will happen on the first quarter. We will have a feasibility study for sure even before we spend for the first megawatt modular generator. That will definitely be there. I'd just like to make a remark, Mr. Chair, on the EV charging stations. Actually, we already did not intend to invest in the EV charging stations, but we respond to like other agencies. I'd like to cite two examples of PNOC trying to support government agencies who have needs related to energy. One is DICT. DICT will deploy several thousand, they call it smart towers in GIDA. They call it GIDA, geographically isolated, what is this? Disadvantaged areas. And so they came to us and they said, can we produce a autonomous power source because many of these cannot be serviced by electric co-ops. And so we are designing this for them as well as for disaster purposes. We were given the technical designs of USAID for a modular energy systems that can be deployed. So this is an example. We're still again going to do studies, but this is an example of collaborating with another government agency for their needs. In the case of EV charging stations, Mr. Chair, we'd like to support the jeepney modernization program. And the National Transport Federation of Cooperatives came to us saying that there are many routes already existing now where they have electric modern jeepneys, but they have to get it's difficult for them to get it charged at a good price. So this is another area, but we are studying this. And again, we will always start with a pilot project. We have identified the Alabang Sapote route to be the first. So before we scale up, we will always have a pilot project. Whatever project it is, there's always going to be a first uh, pilot project.
I'll go to another. I saw in your budget that the capital outlay, I will flash it, increased. Well, first your budget increased, no, from in 2024 1.9 billion to 3.2 billion in 2025. A substantial increase. This one will be from capital outlay there, no? And what are the increases in capital outlay? These are investments, typically. No?
yes.
So, what are these the projects that we were talking about earlier?
Yes, they are, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
okay. So, included in that capital outlay is the self-generating
Yes,
park.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, the
Yes.
EV charging station, the mini hydro, the rooftop solar system. So
Yes,
all of
Mr.
that
Chair. Yes,
kasama
Mr.
siya
Chair.
dyan.
Yes,
Okay,
Mr. Chair.
alright. Okay. So we talked about that. So just submit to us the feasibility study. Again, the direction here is to be able for me to explain to the public why these projects are important to our country.
Mr. Chair, we will submit the actual study for the rooftop, but for the others, we have a concept study. So these are what we can submit immediately.
Okay. Yeah, just submit to us whether it's a feasibility study, a concept study, or a business plan. Just submit to us, no? And clearly stating the profits and well the returns and the benefits to
We will do, Mr.
the
Chair.
country. All right. I'll jump to PNOC EC. I'll jump to one of the subsidiaries. Oh.
Okay. 100 million.
Okay, I'll just show a slide on the screen. I was looking at the um, PNOC's exploration projects. No, um, so there's about 11.3 billion. Is that correct, President Bakud, for
Yes,
the exploration projects?
yes, Mr. Chair.
Of which um, 1.8 billion will go to coal, and then 5.4 billion will go to different petroleum projects. Tama po ba?
Yes,
Yeah,
Mr.
and
Chair.
then 3.8 will go to Malampaya, and then 200 million will go to service contracts 6B. Correct? Tama po ba?
Yes, Mr.
Okay.
Chair.
The itong Malampaya, this is your investment commitment for the new wells. Well, because PNOC owns 10% of the consortium, no? Not the consortium, but 10% of the service contract, no? And so you also have obligations to the development of the future wells, of which 3.8 will go to that development, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
What particular activity the 3.8 will go into for Malampaya for SC38?
Um, this will include the drilling of the two commitment wells, which is the Camago well and the Malampaya East well. These are actually Camago is a development well, and then the Malampaya East is an exploration well.
And then for the coal projects, sorry, unahin muna natin petroleum because the petroleum projects are quite sizable. 5.4 billion pesos will go into petroleum projects. That's 48% of your total exploration budget. So what will go into the 5.4 billion petroleum projects?
Basically, these are the commitment programs for our service contracts, petroleum service contracts. This will include the drilling of the Chico 1 and Mangosteen appraisal well. And then we also have to continue the processing of our seismic data, which we acquired this year. And then there are also commitments from other service contracts in Northwest Palawan po and East Palawan. These are
So itong 5.4, how many service contracts are we talking about?
we have 4 active service contracts that we are operating. That's SC37, SC57, SC59, and SC79.
Can you elaborate that again?
SC37 is the onshore block in
Okay.
Isabela. SC57 and is the block in Northwest Palawan. SC59 is our block in Southwest Palawan. And SC79 is our new block in East Palawan po.
Later na. So itong 5.4 will go into these four service contracts.
Majority po, yes.
Majority will go into that. And of these 4 service contracts, which will yield actual production and when? Kasi I noticed that every year we would also put money into those service contracts. So this year we will put again another 5.4 billion. But looking at your timetable, which of these 4 service contracts will yield actual commercial production and by when? No, because every year na lang tayo naglalagay. So, ang punto ko kasi I'm trying to make, no, in 3.8 billion, ang probability na makakaproduce tayo next year is quite high, correct? I think the target is first quarter of 2025, correct? Drilling's first quarter of 2025. Actual production is first quarter of 2026.
2026.
Okay, and I read in the news reports and also some briefings that the probability of producing oil and producing gas is quite high. So the point I'm trying to make is, with SE38, the probability is high. With these petroleum projects, which we are investing 5.4 billion, what is the probability and when?
Yeah, we are currently working on the Mangosteen, which is a gas discovery in 2015. Um, it's a little bit higher than the exploration program for the other well, which is Chico. But the Chico 1 well is much bigger. We're looking at a much bigger resource. The timeline for production for Chico, if it's a success rate, a success case, it would be by 2028 or 2028 or 2029. And then for the other wells, for SC57, it would be beyond 2030, considering that we still have to drill it first. And then also the same as in SC59, although we're not yet been able to conduct the drilling in this block because there's still an uncertainty with the issue on the West Philippine Sea.
So let's do this one by one. For SC37, when is the potential production?
Yeah, 2028 po for the potential for yeah, assuming we have a success case on the drilling.
And then for SC57, 2030.
It could be beyond 2030.
For SC59, there's a geopolitical issue.
Yes, sir.
For SC70, what is this? 79.
SC79, it's a newly acquired block. So we're just starting with the exploration program. We still have a 7-year period for that exploration program.
Okay. So in other words, the only this amount of money will now go to SC37 and 57. Correct?
Correct po, for the near term target for production.
Because I'm also, I looked at your revenue, so I looked at your revenue, your source of revenue, and here, no, your source of revenue, and since 2018, majority of your source of revenue will come from oil and gas, correct? And I would assume probably 100% of this is from Malampaya, correct?
Yeah, correct, Mr. Chair.
And the other one, business income, I think these are all mga interest income and all of that, no? So since 2018, in other words, the only source of income, majority source of income of PNOCEC is from Malampaya.
Yes.
Wala pa tayong bagong source of income. Correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair. But we're currently doing some work in other businesses. coal in particular.
Correct, correct. There's once upon a time coal was also this contributing some income to you.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Tama, in 2017, 2018. But since 2019, puro malampayan na lang.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
But the point I'm trying to make is we have to, PNOCEC holds multiple service contracts, no? And based on our budgetary allocation, we're also allocating to coal projects, to petroleum projects. In fact, we're allocating close to about 7 billion to various coal projects and various petroleum projects. But if you look at the revenue profile, it's only earning from one source, which is Malampaya. So in any business, when you invest, you expect some revenue out of that investment. So when do we see uh, an additional source of income other than Malampaya for PNOCEC? Considering that we've been investing sizable amounts of money for a long time already, and next year another 7 billion na naman we're investing.
Yes, Mr. Chair. We are well aware of that situation. That's why we're doing some work in other projects. And as I mentioned earlier, we're also doing some development works in our coal projects in Zamboanga, Sibugay. Currently, we've started production phase for our Mine 3 project, and eventually that would be our next source of income for PNOCEC.
For the other service contracts like 37, 57, can we have private sector partners here, correct? Or just purely
Currently, we're 100%, but that part of the work that we're doing is promoting those areas for eventual farming or participation of other
how
companies.
come the private sector is not participating in those service contracts? The particularly 37 and 57, because these are advanced stages na, diba?
Yeah, 37 is relatively small for big oil companies to come in. And as that's part of our being a catalyst for onshore small gas projects. The SC57 area is we already farmed it out last year, but we didn't attract any big companies because of I think maybe the lack of data. But now that we were able to get a sizable 3D seismic, and we found some potential additional prospects in the area, I think there are now bigger interest for big companies to come in. Actually, some companies are already talked to us about it.
That's my point. The private sector normally does it faster, especially experts. They have the technology, they have the data. Admittedly, this is a very alam niyo naman, it's very high capital intensive, to a large extent high risk industry. So how come there's no private sector participation in particularly 57? If we're saying 37 is small, baka why are we pursuing that if it's a small service contract? Aren't we, di ba, dapat we should focus on the bigger service contracts, the more potential, which is 57?
Well, that's part of two-way. I think our strategy. The onshore area has not been very active in exploration. That's why we're trying to prime up the interest in the area. Secondly, we were trying to keep natural gas as part of our potential source, especially in the energy transition. We were able to produce 3 megawatt, produce about 4 BCF or billion cubic feet of gas in Isabela. So we're already sure that there are more gas in there, but there's not, for the longest time, no work in those areas. So we're trying to prime up that area. We're doing work in SC57. There's no interest yet before because there's some maybe lack of data, or there's an oil discovery there, but it was not deemed commercial. So now that we were able to get more data, we can provide them more information that it's not only those prospects that are there. There are other prospects that could be potential replacements for Malampaya. There are bigger structures that we've seen in the new data. So this is a cause of, I think, interest in some of the companies that we've talked to. So now, I think once we start the farm in or the bid process for getting those companies, I think they'll come in.
Thank you for the answer. But the point I'm trying to make is in any investment you want returns, no? And Palampaya seems to be a good investment for us because now that we're looking at expanding the wells, and hopefully by 2026 we'll get some good news in terms of production. The other investment that we're making, also to a tune of billions, should also yield the same. Also, the coal assets are we're also investing 1.8 billion pesos. Now, how many service contracts are we investing in the coal projects?
We only have two coal operating contracts. COC 41 is our the big contract there. We are already in the development and production phase for that COC. The other one is an exploration area where we only have two blocks for that. So it's just
Uh,
the COC 204.
COC 204.
Yes. And we are currently doing some exploration work in that area.
So for 41, when do we see revenue? Because I'll go back to the revenue. Once upon a time, coal is contributing to your revenue.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
So, of course, the talk about clean energy and energy transition, it's beside the point. I'm that's a whole new different conversation. But I'm talking about just the revenue of PNOCEC. The policy whether to continue to explore coal is another policy discussion. But I'm talking about investments, and I'm talking about returns for PNOC. We can talk about the moving forward policy on a different date. But once upon a time, coal is contributing almost a third of your revenue. No, so for COC 41, when do we see actual production for that?
We have already started production this month, so we're expecting to get the revenues starting next year. Po.
And then what's the projected annual revenue? More or less lang, if you have
Mr. Chair, for the mine that we are where we are producing right now, we expect to add additional 600 million for next year, and then that's ramping up. And on the average, we are expecting on the net about 250 260 million per year, Mr. Chair.
that's for export?
No, that will be for domestic use, particularly for cement and the industrial sector, Mr. Chair.
So all of the output of this COC 4 to 1 is for domestic use.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I mentioned about the 600 to 700 million revenue. That's only for mine 3 and another mine which we expect to be on production by 2026. That will be adding additional revenue of 1 billion per year, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. At least there's output. Now, whether are you selling to power plants or just purely cement lang?
Currently, Mr. Chair, that's the intention is for the cement and the industrial
Industrial use.
use. But of course, we have that because of the good quality of coal that we have in Zamboanga, Sibugay. We have that flexibility also of blending the coal with the lower grade coal and cater also to the requirement of the power plants.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer. All right. So thank you for that. That's the point I'm trying to make lang. It's the because right now we're very reliant on Malampaya. That's fine. But we all know that Malampaya also has its limitations. Good thing that the contract has been extended, and then there's now renewed interest to explore the wells and to hopefully produce by 2026. But we should not rely on that. We should continue to look for other sources. And we're supportive. Over the years, we've been supporting the exploration activities of PNOC. But of course, we're also we also want to see returns from those investments. And at least with the coal production, at least we're seeing that that aspect. All right.
Mr. Chair.
Yusek Sharon's here pala. Go ahead, Yusek Sharon.
Mr. Chair, just part of the, as you mentioned, the previous hearing, one of our wish list actually is the seismic and geophysical, geophysical survey that will actually, so we can sell our areas properly, Mr. Chair. And it's a project that we have been asking for a few years already, Mr. Chair. Around multi-year, but amounting to about 1.9 billion, Mr. Chair.
It's for that amount, I think it's cheap considering the vast potential of oil and gas. And I talked to a lot of geologists, a lot of oil and gas expert, and they're saying that's what's missing with the Philippines. We don't have that study, so that's why nobody is in or nobody we cannot spark the interest because we don't have anything to show except the maps, no. But if you don't have that seismic and geological studies, then we can attract more investors to come in, maybe participate also in PNOCEC.
Just to for the scale of the investment, no, if it's 2 billion, Palampaya alone has contributed about 300 billion to the national coffers, Mr. Chair. So it's small compared to what the potential is. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Work hard to allocate that, Yusek Sharon. I think it's we can easily justify that, and I can my based on my readings on the oil and gas industry, it will still stay for the next few decades, even though the world is transitioning. But the transition is dependent on, of course, how smooth and how just are we transitioning. So, and gas will still play a very important role in that transition. So, yeah, thank you for that. Sir, you want to add any more, President Bakud?
Yes, to follow up siguro yung request ni Yusek. Actually, if you remember, I mentioned yung SC57 with the new data. It sparked more interest dun sa mga companies that we've been talking to. So if we add more data to the other areas that were not yet explored, that would add more interest to them. So yung currently actually ang Philippines is still considered underexplored. So the more data we get, the more we can provide them information to keep their interest in the Philippines.
I gathered also from foreign oil companies, no, because I've been also trying to network and also sell the Philippines to different oil and gas companies, big ones and small ones, and they always mention that the data is not robust. No, it's old, it's not robust. They will have to spend their own money to do the seismic survey. So, one selling point that they recommend is to for the country to undertake that. Are you a geologist, Mr. Bakud?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
I'm sure you know the technicalities. All right, thank you for that. And I'll skip. Andyan na ba yung doctor certificate, Mr. Corona?
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Chair. The soft copy was already sent to Miss Hazel.
Andyan na ba? Yes. Okay. We'll talk about that later on. I'll go to NPC first, so we don't lose time. Hybridization, Mr. Rojas. I remember that has been the track of NPC for quite some time now, and this is to reduce to reduce reliance from diesel and liquid fuel. And how many hybrid projects are we undertaking for 2025? First, how many have we built over the last few years, and how many are we undertaking for the next years?
There's any right? Slide 27.
We have two programs, Mr. Chair, while they're looking for the actual data. We have two programs. One is internal, which means we are the new plants that we are creating are already hybrids. That's a slower process because, of course, we depend a lot on the funds coming in from government. The other one is the accelerated hybridization program, which aims to attract the private sector to come in and establish hybrid systems in our existing power plants. So the we have about eight, 10 ongoing and some ongoing, some of them are finished hybrid plants. So about 10, and then the hybridization program, which we are offering as private sector participation.
So you have completed 10 projects. Let me just tama ba? In my list, it's actually 12.
11, I think.
Baka isa ongoing. Let me flash on the slide. These are completed or these are ongoing? Kasi like for example, I'll flash on the slide. San Pascual Solar PV Power Plant. So ongoing siya.
We have completed 3, so the 7 or 8 are ongoing,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
And then 7 are ongoing.
Yes.
And then for the 3 projects and also for the ongoing, I'm just out of curiosity, how do you implement the projects? I know it's complex, no, because you have to have land. So do you buy the land? Do you lease the land? How do you implement these projects? Out of curiosity lang to, because of course
Most-
I support this project, no. In fact, when Mr. Pio was still alive. I remember we were talking about this, and he was actually was the one who broached that idea of moving into hybrid projects in the SPUG areas. Um, but I know that it's complex, no? Because you have to have land, number one, uh, as opposed to just generators. One generator is only a small piece of area. So, just out of curiosity, how did you implement this hybrid projects?
My understanding is most of the land is usufruct, so
Mm.
some of them were donated. Some of them, of course, we've had to purchase. But the local government units like the project, so we expect a lot of cooperation in terms of land acquisition.
So a lot of these are usufruct, and who is the counterparty? Who enters into a usufruct agreement? Is it NPC or is it the local government?
Yeah. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. May I offer a reply to that?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
Normally, it's the landowner if it's a private property. But if it's owned by the government, like the LGU, we discuss it with the mayor or the office of the mayor. And then since this sparks interest also from the area, so we encounter little difficulty in identifying the sites for this land, except, of course, from the securing of the permits. That's the challenge that we are getting in this project, Mr. Chair.
So NPC does not buy the land.
We also buy it if negotiations fail, if we don't get the support from the LGU. But yes, we buy some also of these properties, Mr. Chair.
Okay, but have you bought any of the 7 projects?
Yeah. Yes, we have list of those, but we both list that we have usufruct. We can provide you those lists.
Okay,
Mr. Chair.
okay, because I'm trying to identify in your budget um, the account that pertains to purchase of land. That will fall under capital outlay. Tama? No?
Yes, po.
Okay. All right. And then for 2025, how many more projects are we launching for the hybrid project?
For 2025,
24.
Mr. Chair, we have 16 slated to be implemented. All for Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao.
And these are government NPC initiated?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Iba pa yung private, no? Iba pa
Iba
yung
pa.
MKSP, diba? So these are just, these are 16 NPC initiated projects.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
All right. Do you have the, I don't have the list of the 16. Eh.
We can provide
Yeah, just give us a
your
list. Na lang.
committee, the committee.
Okay. And then another question that I have, and I support the hybridization project. In fact, if we can do it much faster and in more areas, that would be the best. And I also heard President Rojas mentioned about the private sector. So how many, do you have a list of how many private sector initiatives in the hybridization projects?
Mr. Chair, we actually we intend to offer all the existing power plants for hybridization. We are just awaiting the final approval of GPPB of the terms of reference and the contract so that we can call for tender.
So these are existing power
plants,
plants na,
yes.
no? NPC owned.
Yes.
And now you will bid them out as hybrid projects.
Yes.
Not no longer NPPs.
No, we will be part of we will supply the power from diesel generators when, of course, the wind or solar is unavailable. But the private sector will come in and provide the hybrid systems, and we will offer them a PPA of about 20 years.
Okay, okay. So, okay. So they will connect now to your power plant, in other words.
That is correct.
Okay, and then they have a PPA. Will they be entitled to subsidies?
No, the deal with them is
Whatever you get paid,
yes,
ita-translate
yes,
niyo sa kanila.
or
Okay.
whatever they bid. They
Okay,
could
yeah,
bid
whatever.
lower.
Okay, okay. All right. Okay. So in that sense, UCME should go down
That is correct.
in that sense, diba?
Yes.
In that sense. Have you run any figures on how much? I'll go. My question ako sa UCME, but do you have any figures on how much the hybridization saved in terms of UCME? Kasi theoretically, bababa siya, di ba?
That is correct, Mr. Chair. However, we also want to point out that as of today, NPC is only responsible for about 30% of the market share. So 70% is still private sector
Do you mean which one?
in terms of energy. So the NPPs actually produce 70% of what's
Yes.
consumed in the missionary areas.
Mm.
Yeah. But of course, our 30% will make an impact.
Yeah.
As an example, if let's say for a particular area, the SAGR is 740, and the true cost of generation is about 24, right? So the difference will be saved.
Correct, correct. But since you are now going into hybrid, the cost will be lower. So only this is your part lang. This is your part lang, or the NPC part. The NPC kasi you're also part of the UCME, diba?
That is correct.
You're also part of the UCME. Now that the hybrid cost is lower for that area, theoretically the true cost should be lower.
The average cost will be lower.
The average cost will be lower. So that will translate to lower UCME.
That's correct.
Meron about do we have a calculation on that?
We have made some.
Because my point I'm trying to make is, we all know that UCME is going. I'll show now. No, pakita nga natin. I was looking at UCME, and UCME has been going up. It has gone up dramatically since 2015. I'll show it to you. So 2015, UCME is 7.3 billion. Now we're hitting 24 billion in terms of subsidies. And all of us in the on-grid areas pay for this, diba? So, and I would assume this 24 billion, probably majority of this goes to diesel payments.
That is correct.
So whenever diesel costs will go up, UCME will go up.
Yes.
So now since we're hybridizing, we're now consuming less diesel. So theoretically, this UCME will go down.
Yes, that is
Theoretically,
correct.
theoretically.
Yes.
So how much has it gone down based on your?
In the first project that we made, which is basically Limasawa, the average cost went down by about a peso. Peso per kilowatt. Now, in table simulations on the new facilities that we're developing, we're looking at about 3 to 4 pesos.
Oh wow, malaki
Yeah.
Malaki siya.
But of course, this is still table simulation. We don't have much data yet to be able to conclude.
So itong projects nyo, the ones you showed earlier, the 10 plus 15 but this 2025, 16, the 26 projects, these are all NPC areas, correct?
Yes.
So in other words, magkakaroon ng savings ang NPC.
Yes.
Yeah. Just submit to us a computation for those 16 projects.
We will.
because we're very interested to, ako personally, I'm very interested to show to the public that the hybridization is already yielding savings. No? And although maliit lang siya because yung, what you said, 30% lang siya, but hopefully it will translate to lowering down of UCME. Palabas nga UCME.
Our initial estimates for 2025 is that we can save up to 1.3 billion in fuel costs.
Wow.
Kung ma-hybridize namin lahat. Yeah.
1.3?
Yeah. That's correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard something in terms of true cost, 2 to 3 pesos. Can you, paano naman para we can enrich the records?
Yeah. Good afternoon po, Mr. Chair. Actually po, we have like the Rapu-Rapu hybridization project. In terms of the true cost of energy, it will go down to 2 to 3 pesos. For example, the true cost is 27, it will go down to 25 or 24 pesos per kilowatt hour.
Yeah. Laking bagay yun. So, now the next question is, when will the NPPs hybridize? Alam ko may contract sila, di ba?
Yes.
But is there a way to make them, because 70% is NPP. So is
Yes.
there a way to compel them to go hybrid? Because proven na yung 30% makakatipid tayo 3 to 4 pesos eh.
There are two opposing elements, Mr. Chair. First is that if I were an NPP and I am made whole by the subsidy, it's difficult for me to actually invest in a new system which will entail 100% capex. So there's a financing problem there. However, we hope that the imposition of the RPS will motivate the private producers to actually also meet those RPS targets.
Point is, diba 70-30, no? 30% is government, 7% is NPP. The 30% now is doing its part to lower down true cost, no? And I'm very optimistic that it will one day reflect in this UCME subsidy. The next challenge is, how do we convince the 70%, no, to also hybridize? No, and you don't have to answer this now. Just study it. I know there's a contract kasi, may contract yan, and they've already entered into a contract with NPC. But just study the possibility of incentivizing or compelling if that's needed for them to hybridize. Because my challenge to NPC is how to lower down UCME. Lumalaki kasi siya eh. No? That's one. The other one is, I know there is a UCME study that was undertaken in the past by DOE, but I don't know if alam ni Yusek Sharon to. But the UCME rationalization, I strongly suggest for NPC to study that again together with DOE. I'll give you a case in point. Ito, alam niyo naman, pag pumunta kayo sa Puerto Princesa, pumunta kayo sa Calapan, di ba? Yung mga mall doon, lahat ng SM doon enjoys UCME. Di ba? Yung mga commercial establishments all enjoy UCME. And we're paying for that. Tayo nagbabayad doon. No? So, I don't have a formula right now because you cannot charge them through cost also. If you charge them through cost, they will leave the island and you will have massive unemployment. So, what's the right balance? Yun lang inaano ko. What's the right balance?
Actually, Mr. Chair, we have already filed a new set of rates with ERC, basically separating commercial and residential. So we have already filed the rates with them. It's under study. So if that is approved, then we will have part of the answer to the questions that you posed.
Do you have a projection on If that will lower down, that's a lower UCME. Theoretically, that should be lower.
We will submit the rates.
Okay. You submit to us
Yeah.
the rate. So
Yes.
so you submitted different rates for industrial, commercial,
Commercial and residential.
and residential. The commercial is much lower.
It's higher.
It's higher.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah. Go ahead. You said.
one project that we are pushing for the UCME to mga 30% din ng UCME goes to Mindoro eh. So, the Batangas-Mindoro connection, which NGCP is projecting around 2027, Mr. Chair, if all the ECCs are done. And then you also have the bill, the law on the microgrid system also. We still have we're short of takers on the projects and the bidding, pero we're trying to push it naman, Mr. Chair.
Palawan. Out of curiosity. Paba malaki rin yun siguro.
If I understand it correctly, I think 60% of the UCME goes to Palawan and Mindoro, Mr. Chair.
60% Palawan and Mindoro. And I don't suggest to charge them through COSA. Kundi mamamatay mga resort doon. No? Everything, aalis sila doon. No? But my point of the matter there is we just have to, I just want to bring this to the table. And NPC being the entity tasked to collect UCME or the beneficiary of UCME actually is to look at ways to reduce the UCME over time. Hybridization is one. Connecting to the grid is another one. Like what Yusek Sharon mentioned, I think it's impossible to connect Palawan to the grid. No, is that possible?
I think I'm not sure if it's 250 or 5. It's too expensive.
Yeah.
The cost benefit analysis doesn't pan out well.
But
Baka pwede i-mix lang with renewable, Mr. Chair.
yeah, but the beauty of this island, ang maganda sa kanila is they have land. So we can push hybridization in that area as a modality to reduce UCME.
I think it's the how much they consume for the cost of the submarine cables. For now, maybe it's maybe in the future, Mr. Chair. But right now, as we see it, hindi pa kailangan. Mindoro maybe.
For Mindoro po, kaya. Okay, sige. So that's what I want to just bring to the table and for NPC to study is the reduction of UCME by way of the hybridization and also continue. There's a rationalization and that was a leftover project from the last administration. So just continue to study that. How do we rationalize it? My knee-jerk reaction for commercial industrial, they should pay, diba? They should at least pay a much higher rate, no, compared to the residential, no, to the residential. So just put that. I just want to put that on the table so that NPC will continue to study that. And then another topic is the missionary electrification. I saw in your presentation, but I also have data that there are about 479,000 unserved.
We're just opening the
Yeah, go ahead.
Excel
Yep, go ahead.
spreadsheet.
Wala yung file ko. Ay, hindi na. Sunod. 2024. Union versus tama po. Ito, no? This one.
Mr. Chair, earlier we
Go ahead.
households as 500,000, sir, in the missionary areas.
Okay.
Uh, if you recall, sir, last week, sir, the DOE mentioned that the total unserved household is 1.9281 million. But in our tables as of March 2024, that number is 1.78 million. So sir, may konting timing reporting difference lang kami. But in our universe, sir, it's of the 500,000 for NPC, we're targeting yung mga 6,000 households, sir, that are still unserved.
But this is, itong 500,000 is missionary areas covered by NPC.
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
more or less,
Yes,
479,
that's correct, sir.
500.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's
Okay.
correct, sir.
And what's our plan for this 500,000 in 2025?
May I ask, sir, may I ask head of
Yeah,
our
go ahead,
planning
go
to answer, sir?
Yeah, good. Anong plano natin to completely energize this? And is this already inside the budget?
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Sir, actually the numbers of around 500,000 unserved households covers um, all unserved households that includes NPPs, the electric cooperatives. So everybody in the energy sector are responsible to energize.
Ito?
Yes, sir. So out of that universe of around 500,000, NPC is responsible for around 6,000 households only.
Oh, this one.
Yes, sir.
This is missionary. In our notes is missionary.
Yes, sir. And maybe to clarify further, sir, in these missionary areas, NPC is responsible for the generation portion po.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
But you can also do QTPs.
Yes, sir. Yun nga po, sir, yung sinasabi namin numbers po na 6,000. Wherein we are responsible for the generation as well for the distribution of power.
6,000 you're responsible for generation and distribution.
Yes, sir.
And the balance is generation only.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But bottom line is, when do you is the generation or energization of this 500,000 in the budget for 2025?
Sir, for the whole universe, sir, it's a concentrate effort, as is stated in the National Total Electrification Roadmap of the DOE, to electrify all unserved households po.
Hindi, I know. But itong 500,000, this is under the jurisdiction of NPC because for being missionary areas, correct?
That is correct.
So what's the plan to reach that 500,000 household?
We have plans to extend also by distribution and by solar home systems, those that really are in the last mile. But may I go back to what was mentioned during our presentation? That connection is also depending on the approvals that we are seeking for 2025.
Already here in the budget to reach the 500,000? Is it already in your budget?
For 2025, the target for 2025, yes.
Nasaan siya? Capital outlay? You'll buy additional generators? Tama ba? Yung 500,000 lang. Let's just focus on the 500,000. The question is your in your 2025 budget, did you include the energization of the 500,000 household? That is the question. And where is it included?
Yes, it is included in the budget.
And it's in your capital outlay.
Yes.
Okay. Tama? It's in your capex, correct? Tama? It's in your capex? TP2.
Yes, sir. As well as in our OPEX din po, sir.
Okay. And in your CapEx, how many generators are you sets are you intending to buy for that 500 for that 500? Yung 500 lang.
Okay.
Kasi ang goal is to energize lahat, diba? Yun ang goal. My point I'm making is we want to energize everyone. No, that's the point I'm trying to make. Now, I'm trying to make sure that it's already included in the budget. Kasi missionary lang naman to eh. Unlike sa ENEA na you need 60 billion to, tama ba Sharon? 60 billion to energize everything. 67 billion to energize everything. This is only missionary. That's the point I'm trying to make. So we're just talking about gensets.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Actually, this coming 2025, we will be implementing around 5 or 6 diesel gensets mostly in Barm, in Tawi-Tawi. Then the rest will be rented because we have a program for rental. Even for the new areas, we'll just rent the gensets. And for the expansion also, we will rent the gensets.
So that will form under MOE.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Tama?
Yes.
So yung 500 kasama siya dun sa
Chair,
okay.
actually.
Alright.
CapEx and OPEX, actually.
CapEx and OPEX.
Because you will be needing the diesel.
Yes, of course.
So, therefore, it is included.
All right. And but for sure in 500 is covered siya.
Yes,
That's
Mr. Chair.
some
Yes.
point I'm trying to make.
And in fact, some distribution line will be also built in order to serve the unserved households.
Okay. Just submit to us a breakdown of that 500. And then in your submission, just indicate where in the located, whether OPEX siya, whether CAPEX siya, whether we just want to make sure that it's in the budget because yun ang objective to make sure that we reach that 500.
We will do so,
Yeah.
Mr.
But
Chair.
for now, it's already included. That's clear, no? Tama? Okay. All right. Sige. I have no questions for NPC. Thank you very much and congratulations to your hybridization project and document the savings because it can be a best practice for many countries. In fact, a few years back, yung ASEP, yung German funding was really pushing for that but this is the first time that we have seen real savings and more than a peso pa, no? Because before they're talking about 3 to 4 pesos. So that's a good example that many island nations can follow. So congratulations to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'll go to PSAM. Let me just fix my notes. President De La Serna, I saw in your presentation that the government still owes
As of June, Mr.
so June
277 billion, Mr. Chair.
277 billion. And then we still have very limited assets do we still have to privatize. Aside from the land, we still have
CBK.
Agus Pulangi.
Agus Pulangi.
CBK has already been privatized.
We're undergoing a privatization process this year, Mr. Chair. We hope to privatize and we hope to have a successful bidding next year.
Okay.
For Agus Pulangi, that's and Mindanao Coal, Mr. Chair. However, for Agus Pulangi, based on our conversations with government and especially the House of Rep, Mr. Chair, we will continue to operate and maintain and rehabilitate Agus and Pulangi, Mr. Chair.
What's the status of the CBK privatization? I've been reading it in the papers, but its status right now.
So we currently have six bidders. We are they are undergoing due diligence on their side. We on the PSAM side, Mr. Chair, we are finalizing our documents subject to the comments that we receive from the various bidders, and we hope to have a successful bidding by next year and turnover also next year, Mr. Chair.
Is there an indicative price ready for CBK?
Not yet, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
We hope to do that 2 months prior to the bid date itself, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
1 to 2 months
Okay.
prior to the bid
And
date.
then for Agus, the intention is to do a concession agreement type of arrangement.
A rehabilitation, not a privatization, but a rehabilitation. It can be done various ways. Our initial thinking was a concession. Again, we're receiving numerous comments on the modality, so we're
What are
again
the comments?
the preference is to maintain it with government, to keep mostly coming out of the House of Reps because of the risk of
Sentimental value.
sentimental value, the perception that it may lead to higher rates.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, the fear with Agus is it might lead to higher rates. I think even when I go to Ilihan, the mentality of the people there and Mindanao in general, because it's a sizable asset, is when you privatize, the private entity will raise rates eventually. No, there's a big possibility that will happen because you have to earn your return. But the other side of the equation there is if you don't invest, then you don't maximize the full potential of the asset. No? So how do you strike a balance between still maintaining the low cost output of Agus Pulangi and inject private capital so that you can rehabilitate the plant?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Right. Based on the conversations that we've had, there's always a way, Mr. Chair, as long as we're told what the concern is. So in this case, the main concern really is the cost of power, right? And we've said that we can always enter into long-term or short-term contracts and attach it to the concession agreement if we do proceed with that type of modality and have it operated and maintained by private sector. So we currently give the lowest rates in Mindanao. We can enter into long-term contracts with those cooperatives and distribution utilities and assign it to the concessionaire, whether it's 10 years, 15 years, and 20 years. So those rates will be maintained. So even if it's operated and maintained by private sector, even if private sector has to rehabilitate, invest money into the system, the rates will still be maintained based on that contract.
Workable? Will they come in and invest if the rates are rock right now?
It's
Agus,
For our regulated rates in Mindanao is around 280
280, correct?
on average.
Just for Agus.
For
2 pesos yan typically.
less than 2.
Less-
For Agus and Pulangi, Mr. Chair, it requires less than 2 pesos.
About less than 2 pesos.
Yes.
So if you maintain at those rates, will the private sector come in, rehabilitate the power plant, rehabilitate the watershed? Maraming rehabilitate yan eh. What's the rated capacity of Agus?
1,001 megawatts, Mr. Chair.
And then what is the mga 2,000 yan? I know it's about 2,000. All or the entire system.
For Agus and Pulang, it's about
Oh.
1,001 megawatts.
How much is the
Current?
output right now?
If I recall correct, it's about 450 megawatts.
So we're only maximizing half.
Yes, but also due to hydrology concerns.
Yeah, hydrology concerns and all, but mainly it's the technology. The equipment is already quite.
Mr. Chair, on the viability, that's why we're going through we're in the process now of hiring a transaction advisor. And that will come now also, like you said, with PNOC, that will also come with a feasibility study on what we can do to address also the various concerns that we receive from various stakeholders. So among them, a solution on assigning a contract and on how viable is that based on the rates that we're currently that are currently based on an ERC approval, Mr. Chair.
But there's a cost track.
For sure, Mr. Chair. Right.
So, but the value might not be what we're looking for.
May not be what the private investor will be looking for if the modality is a concession agreement.
Okay, because I want to connect this to the overall the last remaining liabilities of PSAM, which is 277 billion. So in other words, I want to see whether the assets are still. Do we have enough assets to pay off the 277? That's the bottom line I'm trying to reach, because
Yes.
the modality will dictate value.
Yes. Mr. Chair, we have done a table exercise. We on what PISAM may look like if there is a corporate. May we submit that to you directly, Mr. Chair? And if you want, we can also have a discussion on that. But among the many things there is also the modality for the private. Is for the asset management of Agus Pulangi, a modality on how we can collect on our receivables, a modality on what to do also with the transmission assets and the various funding sources. So,
how much receivables are we still aiming to collect?
In total, Mr. Chair, it's about 107 billion.
107. So if we manage to collect 107 billion, so we're just looking at the remaining about 170.
Yes, Mr. Chair, and then if you take into account the remaining balance also from the MKA,
Yeah.
so that's about 164. 176 billion. So all of those modalities, Mr. Chair, the revenues that we're earning from Agus Pulangi, the private sale of CBK, we're hoping over a certain amount of time, then PISAM will be in a positive situation, Mr. Chair.
But the problem with the Murang Kuryente, the amounts are not 108 billion is not released.
No, we're hoping that government will give it to us over a time. That's why we have this table exercise on when we actually receive that. So at a certain point, when all of that received, then
because if you look at the historical allocation of government, it's only 8 billion, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So if we're the remaining 176, so if we look at it over a 20-year period of time of collection, Mr. Chair, ganon siya. That's why it's a long-term financial exercise, Mr. Chair.
I think the most well, it's there, no? The Murang Kuryente Fund. Of course, it's there for government to fulfill, but I think the most feasible right now will be the collectibles and also the asset sales. No?
Well, some of the collectibles again. That's a recommendation, Mr. Chair. We've talked about that. It's about I think 20 to 21. The other items are other legal cases, Mr. Chair, and some of them is also subject to ERC.
So let's do this one by one. So the total collectibles will be 107.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And the asset sales, do you have any projections to that? More or less lang. More or less. For Mindanao Coal, Agus.
Sorry, I'll give you a low figure, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, just working figure.
40 billion.
About 40 billion. Baba. So that's 147. And then you're still catching up with 277 balance.
which hopefully will be covered by the MK.
The MK, the murang kuryente over time. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Yusek.
Just to interject, Mr. Chair, the receivables, some of the receivables are also on the how do you call it, negotiations for condonation, Mr. Chair.
With the electric
Of
co-op.
some there.
What I'm aware, out of the 107, you have 7 billion there, Mr. Chair, of Olongo PUD, which is going through condonation discussions at the House, and about 20 to 21 billion also for Lazareco Megalco, Mr. Chair.
I know that some of the House members are proposing to come up with a legislative condonation. No.
Right, and I think we've also heard for Abrec, the condonation just keeps on becoming bigger and bigger.
Correct. I don't know the appetite here in the Senate yet, no, but if you're not getting paid anyways, most likely that is a possibility.
Well, but if we will still continue to be the supplier for Lazaro and Megalco,
Yeah,
it just resets it to zero.
Are they current at least?
No.
So they're not different discussion altogether. No, I just want to get a flavor or a view on how the 277 will be repaid over time.
Well, please add also, Mr. Chair, that the NGCP or the transmission business concession ends in 2034.
And how will that affect the 277? That's on the concession fee side.
That's on the concession fee side, right? If government decides to operate it or extend it or reprivatize it, that has a significant impact on the 277, Mr. Chair.
Okay. How much is PSAM getting from the NGCP concession fees?
On the NGCP concession, the total collections is 197 billion.
A year?
No. In total, since 2009, for the first sem of 2024, we've received 1.44 billion. For 2023, it's about 2.88 billion.
And how much do we project to collect until the
Remaining?
life of the concession agreement?
Around 57 billion remaining, Mr. Chair.
Just submit to us, President De La Serna. I know that you have different simulations on how the 277 will be paid off until the life of PSAM, which ends in 2026?
June of 2026, Mr. Chair.
June of 2026. And there's a proposal to extend it. No?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
I think there's I believe it's transmitted to the Senate already. Tama ba?
At the House, it's already approved and transmitted to the Senate. At the Senate level, Mr. Chair, my understanding it's gone through plenary already.
Yeah. We'll talk about that debate on that here in the Senate when we start the debates on the floor, and we'll talk about that. But in a nutshell, what I just want to get your views on this. What value will the extension bring in relation to number one, the remaining liabilities, number two, the remaining assets? Because just to backtrack a bit, PSAM has a very specific purpose to sell all the assets and pay off the debts. But that is the of PSAM. Now, all know that we still have a little bit, and PSAM has done a good job over the many, many years of bringing down the debt. I think the high was what, 3 trillion?
1.2 trillion.
1.2 trillion was the high. And now it's gone down to 277. No? So, or how will the extension achieve the objective of extinguishing all the debts and privatizing all the assets?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Right. I like also to add to what you just said that we are here to sell. We are here to also pay off the obligations, but also to collect and administer the universal charge, which is supposed to collect that differential. In this case, it's no longer the universal charge, but the MKE funding. With regards to your question, Mr. Chair, we believe that it's consistency of IPIRA purpose, right? We have the remaining assets, including real estate. We do have prime real estates that we want to enter into, whether dispose, privatize, or enter into JVs. We also have existing assets, which we've explained during the committee level, such as the non-power components, which are owned and operated by either PSAM or by the private generators. So these non-power components, by law, cannot be privatized and therefore remains with PSAM.
Non-power component.
Dams, access highways, spillways that are not part of the privatized hydro assets, Mr. Chair, and therefore remains with government. And we've entered into 25-year O&M agreements with these private entities owning those power plants, Mr. Chair. So, for example, for Kaseknan, most recently, it's the dam, the transbasin, the weirs are still maintained and operated by PSAM, Mr. Chair. So those are the assets, collectibles that we think who is also in the best case to collect those receivables because it's the existing cases are under the name of PSAM. If we do transfer along the process, again, we believe also continuity, Mr. Chair, right? That it's PSAM, that all these contracts are in the name of PSAM. It's already, the expertise is already in PSAM. Then we believe it should be PSAM that should do all of these remaining works rather than transferring it or name, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
just to add to that, if it does not extend its corporate life beyond 2026, then all these responsibilities will go to probably the Department of Finance. No? So since, as you mentioned, it's a very specific purpose that they have. It's although it's under DOE, it's practically a financial management company. So that will affect also the national the financing of the country, Mr. Chair.
The IPPAs, they're still you're still collecting from them.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Sual is expiring this year in October. We have Pagbakun in 2026, San Roque in 2028, and Mindanao Code in 2031, Mr. Chair.
And how much are we collecting from them? All of those. After expiration, you intend to bid it out again?
No, Mr. Chair. Part of the bidding for the IPPA is that, especially if they are BOT agreements, build, operate, transfer. So part of the bid price is transferred to the winning entity. We do have, however, that are BOOs. So even if it's an IPPA, it remains with the IPP. So depending on the type of the BOT agreement.
Okay. But how much are we collecting from IPPA contracts? Palista na.
The financial bids for the IPPA, Mr. Chair, is 470 billion pesos. What we've collected so far is 411 billion, so for a difference of about 60 billion, Mr. Chair.
And this 60 billion, it has a time element, diba?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
So how long should it be paid?
On the expiry of the IPPA agreement, so for Suwal in 2020, this year, for Bakun in 2026, San Roque in 2028.
Okay. So you some.
Yes, Mr. Chair. In particular, the San Roque IPPA.
Okay. No, I'm trying to or we'll debate on that. I'm just trying to get a good sense of the rationale on the extension. Okay. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, it's not under an IPPA, but it's an IPP contract that we are administering. It's the Mindanao Coal, which expires in 2031.
Okay. All right. I'll jump to another. Just submit to us the simulation. I know that you've run countless simulation on how to pay off the 277 billion. Different scenarios. For example, I know the Mura Corriente Fund has not been performing up to par as is what we expected. Just give us the different scenarios. For example, if you completely sell the asset, how much can we allocate in the payment of the 277 billion? If we get the entire MK Mura Corriente Fund, how much will it go to 277? So different scenarios.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. I'll go to another topic, and this was discussed here in the Senate by attention. This is the Dama case. I think this is also in relation to the operations of PSAM. But I should I ask PSAM or NPC in this case? Who has
The current arrangement, Mr. Chair, we are the financing arm for the Dama cases. The one who is actually implementing and disbursing is NAPOCOR, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so you're the one allocating the funds.
Yes, Mr.
So
Chair.
can you give me an update on the Dama case, and how do we resolve this?
So for the Dama case, there's a total of 1,715 identified claimants, broken down as follows. 253 are claims validated by COA, and in accordance with the Supreme Court decision, we can only pay claims that are validated by COA. So the difference of about 462 are pending, either pending with COA or have yet to be submitted documents to COA. Now going back to the amounts validated by COA of 1,253, 844 of that has been paid. And we've replenished NAPOCOR for that. 141 and that is still to be or has been paid by has been also been paid by NAPOCOR. So therefore we have 260 have been validated but are pending payment. Now the reason for the pending payment is due to a issue that we have with GSIS. Part of the payment that we are supposed to make under DAMA is not only just the salary, the retirement benefits, but also the statutory benefits. Based on our conversation with GSIS, they require us to pay for the full premiums of the 1,715 despite these amounts not yet validated by COA. So it's a back and forth discussion, right? We're trying to fix our business process also with NAPOCOR wherein the basic pay can be paid even without proper documentation on the payment of the statutory benefits. So that's the current status. We're trying to change our business process or improve our business process so that the basic can be paid, even though the statutory benefits are not yet being paid or has not yet been paid to GSIS tax authorities. And we also have about 462 by COA.
Go to the basics. So the amount that we're looking to pay is 477.
What the amount that we're looking to pay remaining is about 268
268.
dated number, and 462 is still pending or waiting validation from COA, Mr. Chair.
In peso value. In
Peso value, sorry.
in peso value. So it's para lang just to be clear.
Okay. That's where I need authority from NAPOCAR.
Mr. Chair, may I
Yeah,
answer
go
the
ahead. Yes,
question?
go ahead,
So,
Napakar.
earlier po, President Dennis mentioned that the total number of DAMA claimants is 1,715. The equivalent total amount of that is 7.236 billion pesos. And out of that 7.236 billion, we have already paid COA has already validated 1,233 claimants, and that total amount corresponds to 5.202 billion pesos. Of that 1,233 number, the actual amounts paid to claimants, totaling number is 985 claimants. The total amount paid is, as of May 2024, is 4.155 billion.
Okay. So we have a balance of about 1 billion.
Yes, sir. For the remaining balance, sir, we still have to. So it's 3.08 billion, sir. The total, sir, was 7.236 earlier, sir.
Okay. Okay.
We can provide, sir, your committee, sir, with
The 1,715 Supreme Court.
Yes, sir. All those who were not rehired, sir.
Yes.
Originally, sir, I think the total number of claimants was 9,272.
Yes.
The 2017 Supreme Court decision recognized the not rehired as 1,715.
Okay. And then but the target to be compensated is 1,715.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Of which which is equivalent to 7 billion. 7.23 billion.
Yes, sir.
Of
That's right.
which
Yes, sir.
4 billion has been paid. All right. The validation of COA is ongoing.
Yes, sir. We will, as the President's mentioned, we will resume as soon as we are able to iron out right now that would allow us to proceed with paying the main benefits, and while we're still settling the statutory benefits due to GSIS and the other like Pag-ibig and the like.
Now, is the 3 billion balance included in 2025?
No, Mr. Chair. The plan there is either realign budget, Mr. Chair.
Do you have space to realign, or do you have space to do supplemental? You mean this is within 2025?
If it becomes due on 2025, it's not part of our budget. So if
Lang, correct, of COA.
yes, sorry, I'll correct my when the COA validation for the remaining 3 billion or supplemental, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And when is COA planning to complete the validation?
Sir, Your Honor, it will be contingent on the submission, sir. So for 1,000, sir, of the 1,233 we mentioned earlier, the remaining claims of 730, sir, 248 has already been validated. So we still have to process around 482 claims. We need to provide COA, sir, with the supporting documents, and the claimants also have to submit their supporting documents as well.
Claimants have managed to submit all the required documents. Can COA validate them in 2025? Is that a possibility? Ayan pala, we have a representative from COA. Now, the point I'm trying to make is I want to assure the claim that COA validates all of them. There's funds available for them. No, that's the point I'm trying to make. No.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chair. As far as COA is concerned, we have not yet received any documents for validation from the DAMA task force because we're already validated 100%.
Okay. So NPC's responsibility now and the claimant's responsibility to submit the documents. But can you assure us that this 20 now till the entire 2025 to already submit to COA the necessary documents so they can validate?
Yes, sure. In fact, in the joint meeting that we had claimants is that as soon as they are able to formally submit to us their claims and supporting documents, we will readily support and endorse this to COA for them for the remaining 482 unrehired.
Okay. So just so kaya ba in the next this year and 2025 can we submit it to COA and COA validate it? It's just a matter of collecting the information, the documents.
Your Honor, the critical path here is to come forward. No, I understand from the past exercise when we were able to process the 985 and the 248, it was contingent on the claimants being able to properly provide proofs of identity. On the service record, that's a two-way street. We also assist them, but really stepping forward to properly give supporting documents. This has been made public. The requirements are equally advisories are posted both on the Sound website and NPC as well. On the processing side, sir, we have created a task force that is on hand to assist claimants who will be stepping forward, sir.
Mm-mm. So the bottleneck is now with the claimants in terms of submitting the documents.
Yes, sir. Because, for example, something yes, we may have their lists, their names, but for example, their most recent address, to whom, if some of them have already passed away, who are the legitimate claimants. These things would require additional documents on our part to be able to process and release the funds accordingly to them.
Have the claimants been informed of um, all of these requirements? So they understand fully that they also have to submit the requirements.
Mr. Chair, may I ask the head?
Task force chair for the DAMA payments. The requirements have been posted. Problems with documentation on the part of the claimants because the process involves also removing the before. So a lot of that would have to and so that we can properly compute the claims, then endorse it to COA for validation.
Wow. I think what year are those documents? What time frame are
Kung documents when they were separated in
Yeah.
2003.
2003? So we're talking about almost 20 years.
Yes, sir. We've and for a lot of years, the claimants have been they're aware of what they need to part of it nga po is nabigyan po kasi sila ng separation noong 2003. So that would have to be accounted if we're going to pay them the separation their back pay po from 2003 to 2007. Problem lang po talaga yung mga iba na minsan nalubog na yung mga documents nila, yung mga iba nawala na po nila.
Just na lang, let's because we also received letters from the DAMA claimants about this issue. Let's do this na lang. Just assure us, the committee, that you will try as much as possible to be reasonable with the requirements and extend as much leeway as possible to the claimants. A lot of them are already, iba namatay na, iba matatanda na. So as much as possible, just extend leeway so that they can already move forward with their claims. And also to COA, maybe we can also appeal to COA's kind heart, no? To also extend some leeway to these claimants. Can we assure them that in 2025 they will have they can receive their claims through a supplemental budget?
Yes, Mr. Chair, there's room.
Kaya yun.
Yes, sir.
So
Mr.
3
Chair.
billion will not be an issue in terms
Mr.
of.
Chair,
For PISAM, no. No, Mr. Chair.
All right.
lalo na kung ma-extend yung corporate life niyo.
That's another reason, huh? That's another reason for the extension. It's another reason. So sige, well, to claim, no. Baka kasi ang after COA's validation, there's no funds, the necessary documents. Yeah, go ahead.
So, thank you, Mr. Chair, right? And based on this collaborative effort that we're having with NAPOCOR, and I also like to reiterate that the Supreme Court requires a COA validation, so maybe we can also include a better way of aware what the documents missing and what can pass or at least substantially comply with the validation, Mr. Chair.
So yeah, COA is here. So my simple message to COA is to open your heart to the claimants, and let's look at the documents that we can send more leeway to them, no, so that we can complete the payment to the entire 1,715. No?
Actually, sir, we are also bombarded with complaints on DAMA, and we were trying to assist them on how they can be able to comply with the documentary requirements,
Complaints, Ma'am Herrera.
such as, for example, and that they cannot claim. There are birth certificates no longer be read, complaints that they submit to the office of the president and to other senators, asking that their claims were unattended by COA. But it isn't true, sir, because everything that were submitted to us by the DAMA task force were completed by the audit teams.
Yep. Just give us a report, Ma'am Herrera, on those experiences as well as some analysis and recommendation the different agencies together, including COA, so we can move forward with this exercise. Yeah. Yeah, just give us some form of summary or recommendation so that we have met.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. I'll go back to sorry. Ito ba yung ano? Is this the medical MCP medical clinic located in 2462 Ordineta Street, Makati City, Philippines, signed by Arnie Maliari.
Yes,
the
Mr. Chair.
medical certificate. Remarks of the doctor: patient advised to rest for 2 days. Medications. Increase oral fluid intake.
Yes,
By-
Mr. Chair.
All right. So with this medical certificate, we'll accept the for not attending the hearing due to his medical condition. Delay the proceedings and the approval of the budget. Hold on, let me just get my notes. I noticed in your presentation earlier that there's one of some PowerPoint ng Can you flash the can you flash the RC? In strategy 2, status of turnaround plan. There's one mention here among the many slides. Abolition of 16/2024. And number 2, the activation of PNOC RC pending with GCG. Yan. Kita ko yan. And we also received address to Secretary Lotilia